Part 12. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 116. Chapter 113 Prion Research Institute. We're here, Mo Wen suddenly said, directing Matutello to move the boat to the shore. After the boat docked, Mo Wen raised his hand and pointed to a path, saying, "Go along the road from there and you will reach the institute." The institute looks like a chemical plant from the outside, with many large storage tanks outside, but they are just for show. Luo Guang followed Mo Wen off the boat and asked, "How do we get in? Is there anyone alive in the institute? If there is, you can get in with my face. If there is no one alive, or we can get in from the delivery channel." Mo Wen thought about it and gave two plans. "Then let's go. Anyway, we still have the means of blasting in at the end. There are not many zombies here, and it shouldn't attract too many enemies." Luo Guang glanced at Jin, who had already got off the boat, and did not stop her, and said to Mo Wen, "This time, except for Matutello who stayed here to guard the boat, the others will go to the institute together. They are all zombies wearing white hospital gowns. It seems that the institute has probably been occupied." Wang Wei killed the zombie in front of him with a stick and looked at the clothes on the zombies. Mo Wen heard what Wang Wei said and said, "These are not hospital gowns, but work clothes worn by the researchers of the institute." Luo Guang looked at the zombies and said, "I see, but this is the same as the crasher. There is no identification mark on the clothes." Mo Wen didn't know about the crasher, so he asked about the crasher, and the one who answered Mo Wen was Jin. "So is it possible that the crasher was sent out from here?" Luo Guang said, looking at Mo Wen. Mo Wen shook his head and said, "Although there is no logo on their clothes, the institute has a company logo. I checked and it is the logo of a cosmetics company. As for whether it was sent out from here, I don't know. After all, I haven't opened the goods to be sent. That is my professional ethics. When the time comes, ask the surviving researchers there or unlock their computers to check the situation and you will know." Wang Wei turned his wrist with the steel pipe in his hand, and then said, "Keep going. There is a pickup truck in the house in front. I usually use that car to transport goods to the institute. Let's drive directly there." Mo Wen pointed to a wooden house not far away and said. With the car, there were not many zombies on the road, and everyone soon arrived at the outer gate of the institute. From the outside, it really looks like a chemical plant. Jin stood on the roofless cargo box, holding the roof of the front seat, looking at the institute, and sighed. As Jin said, this institute is not a single huge building, but like a factory, it has a spacious cement road for loading and unloading. Of course, there was no truck transport team in this wilderness. This cement road was mainly used for the people in their own institute to go to the warehouse not far behind the institute. Thank God. There are still living people. Hey, I'm watching you with the surveillance camera. No matter who you are, please help us." Luo Guang and his friends had just entered the institute when they heard a man's cheering voice from the radio. "Oh, I can't hear you talking. Keep going forward about 50 meters, then look to the left and back and you will see the entrance. We didn't lock that door." Luo Guang and his friends got off the car, first dealt with the zombies in this area, and then went to find the door. After a while, they found the entrance of the institute opposite to the main door. A zombie heard the footsteps and the sound of the door opening of Luo Guang and his friends, turned around and roared at Luo Guang and his friends. Then a voice came from the radio, "There are still zombies gathering here, blocking your way, so you have to get rid of them first." However, just as the other party finished speaking, Luo Guang and Wang Wei, who entered the institute first, cleared the zombies blocking the way, and then set their sights on the surveillance camera. Very good. Do you see the silver white iron door? The one with the red light next to it. I will unlock the door for you, and when the green light comes, you can push the door in quickly." Luo Guang and others followed the other party's instructions, and when they saw the red light turn green, they pushed the door in quickly. The first thing they saw when they entered the door was the person standing next to the security room. "Hey, you two, I just saw on the surveillance that you guys killed all the zombies in a few moves, just as fast as a tornado destroying a parking lot. You killed the zombies at the door in the blink of an eye. That's amazing." "Ah, sorry, I was so rude to yell. My name is Will Smith, nice to meet you." Will, who was wearing a blue jacket and a pistol on his waist, saw Luo Guang and others and started talking non-stop. In addition to Mo Wen, Luo Guang and others also introduced themselves. "Mo Wen, are you the reinforcements you brought?" Will said when he noticed Mo Wen walking behind the team and closing the door. Mo Wen shook his head and asked, "Will, how is the situation here? Where is Director West? We have just stabilized here, and the higher UPS asked me to quickly think of a way to contact the outside world, and then you came. As for Dr. West, he is in the laboratory in Area A. He already knows that you are here and is waiting for you to come over." Because Will knew that Mo Wen knew the way, he did not show the way to everyone. There was no attack inside. After saying goodbye to Will, Morvan walked at the front and led the way, saying in a low voice, "This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content." Luo Guang and the others saw no signs of fighting except for some people blocking certain roads with obstacles. They thought that the road blocking might be just a defensive preparation in advance. Walking to the innermost room in Area A, Morvan saw Dr. West and shouted, "Director West." After West put down the report in his hand, he asked, "Morvan? You were not mentioned in Will's report just now? Why are you here?" After West asked, without waiting for Morvan to answer, he said, "But it doesn't matter. The timing of your coming is perfect. We are very short of manpower now. All the security guards sent out a few days ago have lost contact. Probably it's all too bad. Is there any work for us?" Now that he has decided to cooperate with Luo Guang, Mo Wen is not in a hurry to introduce Luo Guang and Luo Guang. Instead, he inquires about the situation for Luo Guang before the other party notices Luo Guang and Luo Guang. "We are studying the viruses on the zombies. It's a pity that our previous research institute on Benluli Island was burned down by the animal protection organizations. Otherwise, we would have developed inhibitory drugs, even vaccines, or antidotes." Luo Guang noticed the second half of what the other party said. "So do you need me to help you find research equipment? This situation is very difficult to deal with now," Mo Wen said awkwardly, thinking that the other party was planning to let him find equipment for them. Dr. West shook his head and said, "No, the equipment here is barely enough, but the original virus samples in the institute were burned. Now the viruses we extracted from the zombies mutate too fast and cannot be studied at all, so we need you to help us find a few things to help us develop an antidote to the virus." Original virus sample. Mo Wen noticed the word in the other party's words. Dr. West knew that he had spilled the beans, but the current situation did not allow him to conceal the matter, so he told the truth, "I'm sorry, I lied to you. Our research institute is not actually researching new cosmetics, but has been researching products from Bainoia Prion found in the native people of the island. However, we have absolutely no intention of creating a biochemical crisis. We just want to study this prion to find treatments for prion diseases." Morvan did not comment on West's words, and had no reaction to the institute's research on viruses. Instead, he asked directly, "Did the virus on this island leak from here?" West did not notice the abnormality of Morvan's reaction and explained, "No, there are not many prion samples kept in our institute, and we immediately counted them after the incident and found no missing ones. Besides, this place is located in a remote area, so if it were to leak out, it would be difficult to spread it to cities and resorts, and the people here would have already turned into zombies." After saying these words, Dr. West added, "Those indigenous people are basically asymptomatic infections of the virus. On the contrary, they are more likely to transmit the virus. Luo Guang thought of the isolation of the indigenous people. Doesn't West know that the only bridge connecting the two sides has been broken, or is he deliberately throwing the blame on the indigenous people? Although Mo Wen wanted to ask about the corpses he sent out, this would make the other party question his professional ethics and suspect that he opened the goods privately. Therefore, he did not ask this question and instead asked, "There are people behind you supporting you research it? Otherwise, where would we have the funds and equipment to study this?" Dr. West looked at Morvan. He felt that Morvan's problem was not simple, but he quickly found an explanation. Morvan wanted the forces behind him to take them away. After thinking about this, Dr. West didn't think much about Morvan's position, but he didn't tell everything honestly, and said, "After what happened on the island, I contacted Todd City, the largest shareholder of the Institute. The mayor told him the seriousness of the matter and asked him to quickly seal off the island and notify the superiors. But later, because of the typhoon, we lost contact with the mayor. I think the mayor is in danger." When Mo Wen said this, he glanced at Luo Guang. Dr. West sighed and said, "Yes, otherwise we wouldn't have to hold on. The mayor would have sent someone over to assist us." "Is it just the mayor? I remember you said that there are many people investing here. It seems that there are also internationally renowned cosmetics companies investing in you. Far water can't save people who are near thirsty, and the equipment we have here can't contact people too far away." Dr. West had just said before that he was not a cosmetics researcher, but now he did not deny the investment in cosmetics companies. In addition, what he said about the mayor before made Luo Guang suspicious. "We encountered a kind of zombie wearing a straitjacket before. It was very difficult to deal with. Didn't you create this?" However, in order to paralyze West, Luo Guang did not express his doubts, but mentioned another person. "The matter is in line with the role of oneself. Who are you?" Luo Guang and Wang Wei were wearing camouflage uniforms. Dr. West couldn't tell their identities for a while, so he asked. "We are temporary bodyguards hired by Mo Wen," Luo Guang said before Mo Wen could. When Dr. West saw Mo Wen nodding, he answered Luo Guang's question, "We don't have straitjackets here. We use handcuffs and the like to restrain zombies here." "Have you captured zombies? Are there still these time bombs in this institute?" Luo Guang was very surprised and looked around nervously. Dr. West said directly, "We captured them with the long forks of the security department, and then locked the zombies in steel cages. There is one thing you should pay attention to. Although area is very safe, areas B and C of the Institute have actually fallen and have been isolated. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content." "How did it fall? Didn't you say there was no leak before?" Luo Guang suspected that the cage was not closed properly. "The virus is not missing, and the captured zombies are still locked up. It was because a researcher concealed the fact that he was bitten when capturing zombies at the beginning of the outbreak, so it fell." Dr. West was very dissatisfied and even angry with the person who concealed the matter. He felt that the person should report the matter to him and then devote himself to science, instead of wasting the opportunity to become a rare research sample. "Okay, let's get back to the point. What do you want us to do for you, West?" "Indeed, someone here is researching the virus." Mo Wen is not in the mood to address West as the supervisor, nor is he in the mood to continue talking about other things. West didn't care whether he was addressed respectfully, and replied, "First, look for possible immune people. Second, go to the tribes of the indigenous people to draw their blood samples for comparison. I know where the immune people are." Jin knew that the other party was researching vaccines and antidotes, and was very excited. When she heard that the immune people were needed to help, she immediately said that Luo Guang and Wang Wei had no time to stop her. Hearing this, Dr. West hurriedly asked, "What? Is that person an indigenous person?" "No, They are all tourists who come to travel, Jin said. West's face showed joy, because most of the indigenous people were asymptomatic carriers of the virus, so they were not of much value to the research. On the contrary, the immune people who were not from the tribe were of great significance to his own research and development of the antidote. Therefore, West immediately said to Mon, bring those immune people here. Also, I want to borrow your bodyguards, so hurry up and carry out the tasks on both sides at the same time. Understood. Mon saw Luo Guang nodded slightly with his peripheral vision before answering him. What are we going to do? Luo Guang thought that West wanted the two of them to go to the Aborigines to get blood samples. And Dr. West did not expect that. He gave 2 syringes and 2 test tubes to Luo Guang and Wang Wei respectively, asking them to carry out the task of obtaining blood samples from the Aborigines. Jin, are you staying here, or what? Wang Wei asked. Jin thought for a while and said, I will follow Mon to find Logan and the others. Mon and the others don't know Logan and the others, and I can serve as a bridge for communication between them. Luo Guang nodded. Jin had experienced so many things and had grown a lot, but he didn't understand the sinisterness of human hearts. After the discussion, Luo Guang and Wang Wei left the institute and went to the Aborigines camp according to the location given by West. Things on Banoi Island are almost over, meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 117. Chapter 114. The Trial of the Tribe. That guy West has bad intentions in making this arrangement, Luo Guang said to Wang Wei. Wang Wei also noticed the problem of the task given to her by the other party, and replied, yes, West talked about it lightly, and gave little information about the task. I think those Aborigines will not obediently let us draw blood. From West knowing what happened in the camp, I think it's possible that he also tried sending people to extract the blood of the indigenous people before, but failed. Well, be careful when you get there later. Don't relax your vigilance around the area just because you think the other party is a native. Also, try using the military walkie-talkies we brought to see if you can contact Logan or Cinema and tell them to be wary of the people at the institute. Wang Wei nodded and started trying to contact him, but the distance was too far and he couldn't reach him. Luo Guang didn't force it, and said, if it doesn't work, forget it. Anyway, we should complete the task faster than they go to the research institute. Let's remind them carefully when the time comes. By the way, Guang, we have already investigated the biological crisis on Banoi Island to the fullest. Can we basically apply to leave? Wang Wei asked suddenly. Regarding the biological crisis here on Banoi Island, we seem to have collected a lot of intelligence, but we lack the key evidence to connect these clues. Luo Guang said a more important thing, is there any relationship between Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals and this research institute? If there is a relationship between the two, is it necessary for Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals to bribe the mayor to promote the vaccine? But didn't Mon mention that the relationship between the mayor and Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals is unusual? Wang Wei didn't think so, and said, then the mayor, as the largest shareholder of the institute, is most likely to be Wilpharma. The person who was put on the map by Marmar Pharmaceuticals. What you are talking about is circumstantial evidence. We have no direct evidence to prove that the mayor is managing the institute for the company. Luo Guang thought for a while and then added, although the timing of mass vaccination and the outbreak of the biochemical crisis coincides, we still need to first test whether the vaccines contain the same type of prions. Perhaps we can make use of the specialized equipment at that institute. Yes, West just said that viruses mutate quickly in zombies, so we also need relatively stable prions for comparison. That means we also need blood samples from those indigenous people. Wang Wei picked up Luo Guang's train of thought. Luo Guang said, so we will take more blood samples later and keep a few for ourselves. As for the testing equipment, we will see how to get it then. After the two of them agreed, they started heading towards the tribal camp at full speed. The camp established by the indigenous tribes is located a few kilometers away from the institute. It was specially established by the indigenous tribes to monitor the institute. Luo Guang and the two came to the outskirts of the tribal camp. Although it was broad daylight, they were surrounded by towering trees that blocked the sky and made the tribal camp very dark. There were also several lit torches guiding the way. People go inside. There are many frogs, birds, and other animals hiding in the dark, making chirping or croaking sounds. "Who are you?" a tribesman shouted from the tree, speaking in English. After saying that, the man slipped down from the vines and looked at Luo Guang and the two of them warily. "Calm down, we are here to solve the incident on the island." Luo Guang did not show any surprise. He looked at the blowpipe in the other person's hand and said with a smile. After Luo Guang looked at the location of the camp, he felt that the relationship between the research institute and the tribesmen was not very good, so the tribesmen specially set up a camp here to facilitate monitoring of the institute. Therefore, Luo Guang did not mention that he was sent by the research institute. The other party looked at Luo Guang and Wang Wei warily, and was especially wary of the AK-74 assault rifle held in Wang Wei's hand. It was an evil weapon countless times more powerful than the blowgun in his hand. "Put down the weapon in your hand," the other party said sternly. Wang Wei glanced at Luo Guang, but Luo Guang didn't say anything, so Wang Wei didn't put away his weapon, but was ready to fight at any time. Luo Guang looked at the young man in front of him with a smile and said, "Why?" "Because I am the warrior of the tribe. Because you have stepped into our territory. Because of our glory to the tribe and faith." The young man opposite did not follow martial ethics, and as soon as he finished speaking, he would sneak attack Luo Guang with the weapon in his hand. "Stop, you idiot," a shout came from behind a nearby tree. The young man's hand shook and the air did not flow into the blowpipe. "Elder," the young man looked at the middle-aged man behind him with a complaining look. Luo Guang didn't look nervous at all and said, "Others should come out too. Those bird calls and frog calls are actually made by the tribesmen." The elder narrowed his eyes slightly, stared at Luo Guang, moved his mouth, and blew out a bird song. Following the bird song, there was a rustling sound around Luo Guang and the two of them. In the blink of an eye, Luo Guang and the two were surrounded by the tribesmen. "My name is Krito Op, and I am the elder here." When there were more people, the young man felt confident and said, "Elder, why don't you let me teach them a lesson? Have you forgotten what those outsiders did to us?" "Jing, I told you to be calm before. If I hadn't spoken quickly, you wouldn't have been able to blow that breath." The elder was also a warrior in the tribe before, and his eyes were very sharp. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. The young man named Jing wanted to say something, but was stopped by the elder. "Elder, we came here for those zombies." Luo Guang took advantage of this brief gap and interrupted. "What do you mean by zombies?" The other party seemed to know nothing about the biochemical crisis and asked. "Do I have to start explaining from here?" Luo Guang thought so, but still briefly talked about the zombies. "Zombies, are they the undead warriors we are talking about?" Luo Guang replied, "This name is also very appropriate." "Then why did you come here, to obtain our secret of immortality?" "Elder Upu, we need you to provide some help, such as blood and other things." "Blood? Are you in the same group with that research institute?" Elder Upu's tone became excited and very angry when he heard Luo Guang's words. Wang Wei replied, "No, we are not from the research institute. The reason we want your blood is that we heard that you powerful tribal warriors are immune to the invasion of those zombie viruses." "Bullshit, the sacred blood passed down to us by our ancestors, I will not give it to you outsiders," Jing said angrily. Although the other tribesmen around him could not understand English, they could also hear the anger in Jing's tone and roared. "You two, you've seen that we won't give our blood to outsiders like you. What if I can pass your trial and become your warrior?" Luo Guang's words accurately hit Jing's tail, causing Jing to jump up and roar, "You rubbish, who can only use guns can never pass the Soul Ring trial." Elder Oppa didn't speak at the first time. He stared at Luo Guang for a long time before saying, "If you want to gain our trust, participating in the trial is indeed a good way, but as Jing just said, can you really pass the trial without your guns?" After speaking, Elder Oppa turned around and pointed at the two heads on the wooden stakes not far away and said, "Those two guys were sent by the Research Institute to participate in the trial. They tried what you are going to do now, but they didn't even pass the first level without their guns." Luo Guang pulled out the mountaineering pick behind him and said, "Then can I use this weapon?" "Is this thing that looks like a pick and an axe your weapon?" Oppa turned around and looked at the weapon in Luo Guang's hand and confirmed. "That's right. That's no problem." After saying this, Elder Oppa shouted a few words to the people around him in their tribal language. The tribesmen around him didn't move when they heard the elder's words, but whispered to each other, which made Elder Oppa angry and roared again. Seeing that their elders were angry, the others dispersed and hurried to prepare for the trial. "Challenger, what's your name?" "Luo Guang." "I understand. Before you enter the Soul Ring, I have to confirm it one last time. Once the trial begins, you can't stop unless you decide life and death." When Oppa said this, he looked at Wang Wei. Luo Guang didn't turn back to tell Wang Wei, but nodded confidently, followed Oppa to the circular coliseum called the Soul Ring, waiting for the fences around to open and release the undead warriors inside. Seeing that Luo Guang had made up his mind, Elder Oppa didn't say anything more, walked to the host platform, and began to chant the ancient war song, which sounded a bit like the roar of zombies. As the singing echoed in the forest, Luo's retreat was blocked by wooden fences. Around the Colosseum were the tribesmen and Wang Wei, who was not worried about Luo Guang. Compared with the zombies, she paid more attention to the tribesmen to prevent them from attacking her and Luo Guang. As the song changed, the trial began, and the many zombies in the first 3 rounds did not cause Luo Guang any trouble. Luo Guang still had the energy to secretly compare and found that these zombies were even weaker than the zombies in other places on the island. The tribesmen around saw Luo Guang flexibly dancing among the zombies, and each attack could accurately harvest an undead warrior, and they also shouted in surprise. The tribesman named Jing curled his lips and disagreed in his heart. He could do the challenges of the first 3 levels like Luo Guang himself. The singing of Elder Oppa began to become louder, and Luo Guang could hear that this trial had reached its climax. In the entire Soul Ring, in addition to the road that Luo Guang came down, there were 4 wooden fences. 3 of the fences were filled with ordinary zombies, who would roar when they heard the singing, but the last wooden fence was very quiet. The wooden fence began to rise slowly, and a heavy footstep began to sound. A huge black man with black skin and dull eyes appeared, a bit like the death tyrant that Luo Guang had encountered. However, it was just a variant of the tall zombie, with stronger muscles and faster speed. In addition, as the strongest undead warrior of the tribe, it still had its special features, that is, the zombie in front of him had a total of 4 arms, and the extra arms were connected to the left and right of the chest. Luo Guang dodged the opponent's elbow strike, but the opponent failed to stop the collision attack in time and directly hit the stone wall of the Soul Ring, creating a pit with his elbow. When Jing saw the black giant in front of him, he couldn't help but feel a sense of fear in his heart. That was the most powerful undead warrior in their tribe, and the source of their confidence to set up a camp around the institute. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Unlike Luo Guang, who is an outsider, the locals of the tribe only need to pass the first 3 rounds to pass the trial. At that time, after passing the first 3 levels, the arrogant Jing clamored to challenge the strongest warrior in the tribe. If it weren't for Elder Oppa's people to forcibly protect Jing that day, Jing would have been beaten to death by the opponent. With a hint of curiosity, Jing wanted to see how Luo Guang, an outsider, would be ravaged by the strongest undead warrior in the tribe. Unfortunately, Jing only saw how Luo Guang used his position to play tricks on the strongest man in his tribe. With disbelief in his eyes, Luo Guang's speed became faster than before. But Jing soon comforted himself again, saying that the outsider was just exhausted and would eventually lose to the endless physical strength of the strongest. The reason why Luo Guang did not fight back was because he was observing the combat power of the giant zombie in front of him, especially the two extra hands. Luo Guang found that the hands were not flexible. For example, in the charge elbow attack, the extra hand did not attack Luo Guang, who dodged to the side of the giant zombie. Instead, after missing Luo Guang, it swept to the side after realizing it. Moreover, there was a slight color difference between the extra hands and the giant zombie body, and there were obvious scars at the connection. Luo Guang couldn't help but suspect that the hands were sewn on later. However, these were not Luo Guang's business. No matter how powerful the power was, it was almost nothing if it was not exerted with the corresponding intelligence, especially Luo Guang had the power that was not inferior to the opponent. It was just because there were other people around, so Luo Guang had to hide his real power. After observing the giant zombie in front of him, Luo Guang made a plan in his mind. He quickly stepped back a few steps and pulled away from the giant zombie. "Are you afraid, outsider?" Jing was mocking Luo Guang's cowardice, as if this was the only way to convince himself that he had been defeated so badly before because he had bravely rushed forward. Jing's words had no effect on Luo Guang, and Luo Guang ignored him, focusing all his attention on the giant zombie in front of him. The giant zombie saw Luo Guang pulling away, and as if it was a set program, it was about to launch a collision attack again. However, this time, Luo Guang dodged sideways and immediately came behind the giant zombie. At the moment when the giant zombie hit the stone wall and paused, Luo Guang jumped up, raised his mountaineering pick, and hit the giant zombie's head with the side of the pick head. After a successful hit, Luo Guang did not relax his vigilance immediately, but kicked the giant zombie's back with his foot, pulled out the mountaineering pick and moved away from the giant zombie again. The battle song sung by Elder Op was coming to an end, and the giant zombie fell forward, hit the stone wall and slid down. Those who had been making noises fell silent and looked at the giant zombie that fell to the ground in surprise. In the past, there were people who passed the test of the strongest in the tribe, but those people basically won by delaying time and waiting until the elders finished singing the war song. At the end of the song, Luo Guang was the only one left standing in the entire soul ring. Elder Opu walked up to Luo Guang and said, "I have seen the souls of my ancestors descending on you. Luo Guang, you are a great warrior. You have won our respect, and the blood of our tribe will accept you." After that, Elder Opu repeated it in the tribal language, and the tribesmen around him, except Jing, cheered along with the elder's words. Asterisk. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 118. Chapter 115. The Girl Crying in the Tribal Holy Land. It only takes one strike. Jing watched with surprise as Luo Guang walked out of the soul ring after checking the tribe's strongest warrior. However, Luo Guang still ignored Jing's words, just ignored him, passed by him, and found Elder Oupu. "Elder, what's going on with those extra hands?" The first thing Luo Guang wanted to ask was that giant zombie that looked like a monster. Elder Op looked very happy when he saw a new warrior being born. He didn't think it was a pity that the giant zombie was defeated by Luo Guang. After hearing Luo Guang's words, he immediately replied, "His name is Unao Peng. He became an immortal warrior many years ago. At that time, he felt that he had reached a bottleneck and actually violated the rules of his ancestors and used the tribe's forbidden technique." "The effect of the forbidden technique is those arms?" Luo Guang asked. "Well, The reason why forbidden techniques are called forbidden techniques is because the success rate is extremely low and the side effects are very serious. Elder Op took a look at the giant zombie in the soul ring and said, "Oh, then he is quite powerful, he actually succeeded." Elder Op understood that Luo Guang had misunderstood, and said with a bitter smile, "It failed." Not long after he sewed the arms of the strongest enemy in his life to his body, he had a violent reaction. In the end, in order to protect our strongest warrior, we can only try to get him to continue taking the immortal meat of his ancestors. Luo Guang understood that this meant letting Unao Pang eat dead meat, then it became like this. Op nodded and said, "This is the best result. You also saw that our former strongest warrior was successfully resurrected and his new arms can also be used. Have many people in your village taken immortality meat?" Luo Guang wanted to confirm the situation of the tribesmen from Opu. Op did not answer directly and said, "In the past, many people wanted to live forever, or to resurrect their relatives and friends, and then many people endlessly rushed to eat the immortal meat. As a result, our behavior angered the souls of the ancestors, then placed a curse on those who ate the meat. The living people who ate the meat suffered from the curse of the ancestors for the rest of their days, with frequent headaches and joint pain, stiffness of the limbs and involuntary movements. And finally dementia, incontinence, and paralysis." Elder Opa recalled the past disasters of the tribe, with sadness on his face. If it hadn't been for this incident, the tribe's population had dropped sharply. Opu and his tribe would not have given up their settlement so easily to build a resort. When Luo Guang heard Op's words, he thought that those were the early, middle, and late symptoms of Kuru disease, which was consistent with the information he had obtained before, and continued to ask, "What about those who want to be resurrected?" Many people have not been able to be resurrected, and those who have been resurrected have become undead warriors, so there are not many of them. Elder Op replied with a worried look. "My condolences. Elder, since I have become a warrior of the tribe, I can get your help." The word blood seems to have a special meaning to the tribesmen, so Luo Guang did not say that word this time. "Sorry, warrior, you still have one last trial to pass." After saying that, Elder Op also talked about the fourth level of the Ring of Souls, explaining that it is very difficult for outsiders to join the tribe. Later, Elder Op continued, "Our tribe respects our ancestors very much, so you still need to obtain the approval of your ancestors." "You mean I want to eat the immortal meat?" "Yes," Elder Op replied obligingly. "Am I not a warrior of the tribe?" "Yes, your bravery has conquered all of us here, that's why I call you a great warrior." Elder Op continued, "But the ancestors' teachings mentioned that blood is the most valuable property of our tribe, so if you want to obtain our blood, you must first obtain the permission of your ancestors." "A Guang." Wang Wei looked nervous when she heard the elder's words. She held Luo Guang's right hand with one hand, tapped Luo Guang's palm with her thumb, and asked Luo Guang in code what he wanted to do. Luo Guang kept gently squeezing Wang Wei's thumb in response to her, and said to Elder Op, "Can she come with us?" Elder Op was very talkative at this time and expressed enough respect for Luo Guang, a warrior, and said, "Okay, please come with me." After speaking, Elder Opa told Jing a few words in tribal language, and then took Luo Guang and the others to their holy land. "There is a trap." Jing's expression changed. Wang Wei was still being held by Luo Guang, so Wang Wei told Luo Guang by tapping the code with her hand. "I know, get ready to fight." After Luo Guang replied to the signal, he let go of his hand. Wang Wei on the other side touched his face with the hand he had just shaken, and then switched to holding a gun with both hands. The journey was very long. Luo Guang and Wang Wei were sitting in the tribe's canoe while listening to Elder Op's introduction to the history of the tribe. The tribe's holy land is actually the tomb of the tribe's ancestors. Op introduced, "In the holy land, you can find many of our ancestors, fallen warriors, or great heroes. When you get there, after you eat the immortal meat, your ancestors will guide you on how to gain that power." After getting off the boat, the three of them walked up the mountain road. There were not many woods along the way, which was not conducive to ambushing the opponent's troops. "We're here," Op said as he arrived in front of a wooden fence halfway up the mountain. There were giant reliefs carved by tribesmen on the stone walls on both sides of the wooden door. Luo Guang and Wang Wei followed Oupu and walked in. There were many tribal decorations nailed to the walls on both sides, and shelves were set up on which were placed items offered by tribesmen to their ancestors. The sacrifices are basically clay pots, food, etc., which have little historical value. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Because there are torches that have been lit for many years on both sides, Luo Guang and others do not need to use other lighting tools at this time. Luo Guang suddenly heard a cry and carefully identified it. It came from deep in the cave. "Elder, what is this?" "It's just a rumor." Elder Op listened carefully and said. But this time, Elder Op misheard. The cry was not caused by the wind blowing into the cave, but by a real tribal girl, lying on the grass bed on the ground, with her back to everyone, crying. "She is careful, she seems to be in a bad condition, stay back." Elder Op didn't know why the girl in front of him ran into the ancestral Holy Land. This is not an amusement park that can be entered and exited casually. Luo Guang and Wang Wei took a few steps back, while Elder Op took a long stick with a skull and carefully leaned over, using the skull on the stick to push the girl on the ground. The girl who was pushed by something reacted and was about to turn around, but the elder's movements suddenly became very exaggerated. He took a few steps back and then started to dance. "What is he doing?" Wang Wei asked softly in Luo Guang's ear. Luo Guang also looked confused, unable to understand what the other party was doing. Oupu was dancing and hitting the girl with a stick, but neither Luo Guang nor Wang Wei said anything to warn her. Although the girl's face was still stained with tears, she reacted quickly, rolled sideways, and avoided Op's attack. Then she shouted in tribal language, "Elder, I am Urima. I'm sorry. I'm leaving. Got in here." Although Urima was begging for mercy, the elder seemed not to let Urima go, and kept hitting Urima with the long stick in his hand. Urima climbed out of Op's attack range like a dog crawl before standing up and continued to beg Elder Op for mercy. "Elder, I was chased by several outsider zombies, so I had no choice but to run in." Luo Guang noticed that Urima was talking about zombies, not undead warriors, which indicated that the other party might have lived outside the tribe recently, watched TV or listened to the radio. Only then did Elder Op stop his strange dancing and attacks, and said, "What? There are actually zombies appearing around the Holy Land? Those damn outsiders." The elder did not hesitate to say this to Luo Guang and Wang Wei, who were still present. After scolding him angrily, he said to Luo Guang, "Warrior, you guard the Holy Land here first. I will go back and call someone over." "Okay," Luo Guang replied after looking at the other party's performance. Watching Oupu leave, Luo Guang breathed a sigh of relief and said to Urima, "The elder is gone, why are you trapped here?" Luo Guang asked. He did not encounter zombies along the way, but the other parties, the performance and the elders just hit him hard, and it didn't look like they were colluding. Urima glanced at the clothes of Luo Guang and Luo Guang, and understood that the other party was an outsider, so she said with ease in English without much accent, "Our tribe has a tradition, and everyone has to eat it. The immortal meat of their ancestors, they believed that if they ate it, they would live forever." Luo Guang thought about it and found that Oupu did not say that they had abandoned this tradition, so he asked, "Then did you eat that meat?" "I was sent to a town school to study when I was a child, so I knew English, and I also knew that meat would not make people immortal at all, it would only make people sick, so when I first came here, I just pretended eat that meat." "Then why are you hiding here now?" Luo Guang asked. Urima cried softly and replied, "Because my mother knew that I didn't eat meat. In order not to be punished by the tribe, she forcibly locked me up here and made me eat the meat." "Then how do you say it was the zombies who forced you in?" Wang Wei asked. I lost consciousness after being fed the meat by my mother. When I woke up, my mother kept feeding me food and water from the patio above. It wasn't until those characteristics appeared on my body that she let me out. Yurima recalled what happened more than a week ago and cried, my mother asked me to say that about the zombies just now. She said that the elders would definitely deal with those outsiders. Doesn't anyone usually come here? Luo Guang asked. Yurima did not hesitate and answered quickly, yes, no one comes back except for special days. My mother has confirmed that there will be no sacrificial activities this month, so she brought me here. Wang Wei paid attention to one thing the other party said and said, do you have those characteristics? No, no symptoms have appeared, so after I woke up, my mother still asked me to stay here and eat the meat every day. But since yesterday, my mother has not sent food and water. Yurima only has 2 items on her body. The animal skin clothes covered the upper and lower parts of the body. Luo Guang and Wang Wei did not see any strange features. There was some dried meat and water in the pottery bowl on the side, which corroborated Yurima's words. Guang, is she? It's very possible. Luo Guang nodded and asked, what are you going to do next? I want to leave here, leave the tribe. Yurima no longer has any attachment to this tribe. We can take you away, but we have a condition. We need your blood to study the antidote for the zombie virus. Hearing Luo Guang's words, Yurima nodded without hesitation, and then Wang Wei took out the blood drawing tool and drew a tube of blood for Yurima. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. In this way, it is us who have completed the prerequisites for the production of vaccines and antidotes. First Luo Guang said this, holding a shotgun in his hand, and led the 2 people out of the Holy Land. The wind blew in from the wooden door. Luo Guang raised his left hand and said in Chinese, you hide inside, there are many people outside. The body odor of the tribesmen who did not take a bath all year round could not be concealed from Luo Guang at this time. After confirming that the 2 had hidden well, he walked out alone and saw the tribesmen who were waiting for battle. Outsider, I saw at first sight that you are a great warrior, but our tribesmen will never recognize you. Up stood in front of everyone, surrounded by tribesmen holding blowpipes. At this time, Elder Up's face showed a crazy expression that he had seen for the first time. Before he finished speaking, he waved his hand to let the people around him shoot Luo Guang into a hornet's nest. However, Luo Guang was faster, and the range attack of the shotgun could just be used to deal with the dense enemies in front of him. The target of the first shot was Elder Up. Jing reacted, hid in the stone pillar beside, and fought back with the blowpipe in his hand. Although those blowpipes could not break his defense, Luo Guang would not be so arrogant as to stand in place and shoot back. He left his original position when he fired the first shot. The poisonous arrow passed through Luo Guang's original position and shot at the wooden door of the Holy Land. Surround him, Elder Up had fallen in a pool of blood, and Jing was commanding everyone at this time. However, the place they chose was not particularly good. There was a cliff on one side, resulting in few places and shelters for them to hide, but for Luo Guang, there was no shelter around. Jing cursed the elders for being pedantic. If it wasn't for Elder Up's words to express respect for the warriors, he would have shot Luo Guang with poison arrows the moment he came out. Waste, if you don't sneak attack, is this all you can do? Although Luo Guang said this to everyone, only Jing understood the English. If you have the guts, put down your gun and fight us, instead of relying on the weapons in your hands to defeat us. Jing's words were shameless. Okay, Luo Guang put away the shotgun that had run out of bullets. Jing didn't continue talking. He confirmed Luo Guang's position based on the sound and leaned forward to blow the winning arrow. However, Luo Guang's bullet was faster. Luo Guang, who had been staring at Jing's position from beginning to end, had already pulled the trigger the moment the other party poked his head out, and shot the other party in the head directly. In Jing's last sight, there was a disdainful smile on Luo Guang's face. A little late, sorry. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 119. Chapter 116 Applying for Evacuation. You can come out now, Luo Guang said to the two people inside the Holy Land after finishing the sword repair. Wang Weiai and Yurima came out of it safely. Judging from Wang Weiai's expression, Yurima did not do anything irrational while she was alone with Wang Weiai. Elder? You. Yurima was so shocked that she couldn't speak when she saw the tragic situation in front of the Holy Land. She even felt a trace of fear and hurriedly ran to check on the people lying in a pool of blood. Luo Guang glanced at Yurima and said to her, "They want to kill us and you all." "Why?" Yurima shouted, but when she saw so many people around her, she immediately understood, "Is it because I broke into the Holy Land?" "Yes, and we were killed because of our status as outsiders." Luo Guang said this to make Yurima feel that he and Luo Guang were grasshoppers on the same rope. When Yurima heard this, she lowered her head and felt very uncomfortable. Although she hated all kinds of things in her tribe, it was still the place where she had lived for many years. Luo Guang couldn't say anything to comfort her, so he just told her what happened on the island when she was trapped in the Holy Land. "My mother also told me these things. She hasn't been there in the past few days." "Could it be that she has?" Yurima didn't finish her words and immediately ran down the mountain. Luo Guang and Wang Weiai didn't bother to tell her to stop or ask her what she was doing, and just followed each other down the mountain. After walking through a quiet path, Yurima came to a village. The village is very quiet, there are no zombies, no living people, only corpses lying quietly. Yurima found her mother and the message her mother left for her at her home. There are not many corpses outside. The fatal injuries are all on the head. They should all be zombies. Wang Weiai walked into the house after checking the corpses outside and said to Luo Guang. Luo Guang also saw the condition of Yurima's mother. There were bite marks on her arm. Judging from the note left behind, she should have asked someone else to help her finish it. In her will, Yurima's mother asked her daughter, who yearned for the outside world, to leave the tribe and pursue her dream life. "I want to escape from here," Yurima said after reading her mother's last instructions. Wang Weiai nodded and replied, "Then follow us, we are almost leaving the island." Yurima nodded, indicating that she was going to pack her luggage, and after Luo Guang said something to Wang Weiai, he left the room and called Serpo. "Hey, you guys are still alive. I thought you had lost your lives there." Serpo was still so disgusting, making people want to punch him as soon as he opened his mouth. "The investigation is over. Pick us up where we landed the day after tomorrow," Luo Guang said straightforwardly, not bothering to talk to Sepir. "Oh? Have you found the cause of the outbreak?" "What is the cause?" Luo Guang heard the change in Sepir's tone. Although it still sounded frivolous, he took it more seriously and replied, "We found a research institute where this biological crisis was studied a long time ago." "Virus? What? Research institute?" Serpo rarely showed a surprised tone. Serpo also knew that he had lost his temper, so he adjusted himself and asked, "Ahem, who is the person in charge of the institute?" Although Serpo adjusted, Luo Guang already understood that Serpo or the Will Pharma pharmaceutical company behind him most likely did not know about the institute. Mayor Todd of Bainoi Island. Luo Guang did not hesitate, pushed a dead man out, and continued, "He is the largest shareholder of the research institute. As for the other investors, I don't know." After Serpo contacted the captain to confirm the weather conditions, he replied, "Understood. We will help other investors to continue the investigation. The evacuation time will be 10 a.m. the day after tomorrow. The person who picks you up will be there. Don't be late." Luo Guang replied received, then put down the satellite mobile phone distributed by the Red Claws. After confirming that Wang Weiai was not looking towards him, he took out the mobile phone of Organization X and contacted the people of Organization X. Because Luo Guang has become a formal member, and Emma Greenwell was injured. Luo Guang's liaison officer at this time was replaced by a new person, a person named Susanna Bell. Bell, I am Luo Guang whispered. Copy that, please speak. Susanna's voice was very neutral as she replied. It's about Bainoi Island. I need the organization's cooperation. Then Luo Guang told the other party his plan and the benefits to Organization X. I understand, I will submit the plan and pay attention to the text message. Susanna wrote down what Luo Guang said. After finishing speaking, Luo Guang was about to hang up the phone, and Susanna suddenly said, Luo, the organizational task you submitted before shows a completed status, so I think the plan you just submitted will have a high probability of being passed. Thank you. Luo Guang understood the meaning of the other party's words and thanked the other party for informing him of this matter. This time he really hung up the phone. Luo Guang put the phone away and started thinking. The search for the elixir of life was settled so quickly, which was a bit beyond Luo Guang's expectation, but for Luo Guang, this was actually a good thing. After obtaining the elixir of immortality, Luo Guang's status in the eyes of the organization will be improved. In order to obtain more elixirs, the success rate will be very high. Guang, we are ready. Luo Guang just walked back and saw Wang Wei and the other two people coming out. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. How is the situation? Wang Wei asked. Luo Guang answered truthfully, the day after tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, we will pick us up at the place where we landed. Are we going to leave by boat? Is it the kind of big iron ship? I have only been on a canoe since I was a child. Yeruima looked very excited and seemed to have adjusted her mentality. That's right. After Luo Guang answered, Wang Wei asked again, Guang, we can go back tonight, why do we have to stay for a few days? We have to take Logan and others with us. Luo Guang explained, they are also very important. Luo Guang's also made Wang Wei understand, and replied, okay, let's play for 2 more days. Why are you so anxious to go back recently? Luo Guang found that Wang Wei was always anxious to complete the task recently. Wang Wei smiled bitterly and answered in Chinese, actually, this tights, although it has good performance, will have a peculiar smell after wearing it for a long time, and this damn place is also a bit hot, so I feel uncomfortable all over occasionally. What I want most now is to take a shower. It is true that I haven't found a place to take a shower these days. Luo Guang thought that there was indeed no place to take a shower at the rescue station and Avran's village. Wang Wei nodded like a chicken pecking at rice and continued, okay, let's get back to business. At this time, Wang Wei switched back to the English channel, and also told Yeruima that the two had just talked about private matters, and continued, what are you going to do about Logan and the others? Go back to the research institute first, meet up with Logan and the others, and then talk to Mon. After all, we need his ship to leave, and then go back to the rescue station to wait for time and set off to the designated evacuation site in advance. Luo Guang briefly explained the plan. How to deal with the research institute's affairs? Wang Wei asked. Don't force people, but it's best to pack up the research materials and take them away. Luo Guang's words meant that the people in the research institute were not important. What kind of place is that research institute? Yeruima asked. Luo Guang carefully told Yeruima about the research institute and asked her to hide the fact that she was immune. As they talked, they walked back to the vicinity of the research institute under the leadership of Yeruima. Without rushing to enter the research institute, Luo Guang asked Wang Wei to contact Logan and the others again, but he still failed to contact them. Are they okay? Wang Wei put away the intercom and asked. Luo Guang didn't know, but he understood that this would make Yeruima's role more important. Since he couldn't contact them, Luo Guang couldn't just wait outside, so he took a few people into the research institute and was soon warmly welcomed by Dr. West. The reason was simple, because Dr. West found that Luo Guang actually brought a tribesman back directly, and said, oh, I didn't expect you to bring someone back directly. Luo Guang didn't say anything, and directly handed the other party a blood sample, which Luo Guang took after dealing with Hup and the others before they bled dry. This is what you want. Luo Guang directly handed the book to the other party and asked, how long will it take to analyze? About a few hours. During this time, you can help other people in the Institute. West thought for a while and replied. Then let's take a rest first, and you go to analyze the blood sample quickly, Luo Guang said, without giving West a chance to ask about Yeruima, and took Wang Wei and Yeruima out of the room where West was. Then, Luo Guang caught a researcher who was in a hurry and asked her if there was a place to take a shower here. The other party replied that there was a part of the area here that was the daily living area of those researchers, and it was naturally equipped with a shower room and hot water. Wang Wei's eyes lit up when she heard this. The institutes she had seen when she worked in Europe before only had disinfection rooms, not shower rooms, so when she came to this institute, she didn't think there would be a place to take a shower here, so she quickly pulled Yeruima to the shower room, and Luo Guang was also called over by Wang Wei. Then Luo Guang sat near the shower room, waiting for several people to take a shower. More than half an hour later, Wang Wei and Yeruima came out. At this time, Yeruima changed into a new set of clothes, and the patterns on her body and face were washed off, so that she would not be recognized as a tribesman at first glance. However, Yeruima had not worn underwear in these years, and the clothes she found were relatively thin, which made Yeruima's upper body a little protruding, making people dare not look directly at her. However, the more you care, the more embarrassed both parties will be, so Luo Guang pretended not to see it, and remained calm under Wang Wei's gaze. Next, several people found a dormitory, rested, and waited for Logan and others to arrive. In the afternoon, when it was close to dinner, Logan and others finally arrived at the institute, and Dr. West immediately drew a tube of blood from each of the 4 immune people. After another round of waiting, Luo Guang and others finally met up with Logan and others, but among the people who followed Logan and others, Jin was missing. According to Xian Mei, Jin decided to stay at the rescue station to help the survivors on the island, otherwise she would only slow down the progress of Luo Guang's mission if she followed Luo Guang and others. Luo Guang didn't say anything about this, and took Logan and others back to the dormitory where he had rested before. Many people were crowded in a dormitory of the institute. Wang Wei took out a scanner to check the room and removed the hidden cameras in the room. Then, Luo Guang exchanged intelligence with the other party and told them what Logan and others wanted to hear most. I have applied for evacuation, the day after tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Great. We can leave this damn place. Sam B was so excited that he couldn't suppress his voice when he heard that he could finally leave. Keep your voice down. Sam, Xian Mei said to calm Sam B down. Pina said, who is the mastermind of this incident? When, did you tell them about the institute? Luo Guang did not answer, but asked When this question instead. I did say that, and I also mentioned that they should be careful. Luo Guang nodded, looked at Yeruima, and said, the mastermind is uncertain, but the origin of the virus comes from the indigenous people on the island. Are you saying that it was our tribe that caused the zombie disaster? Yeruima also saw those zombies on the way to the research institute. They were indeed exactly the same as the undead warriors of the tribe. At that time, she had some guesses in her mind. When Luo Guang mentioned this, her reaction was not big. Luo Guang shook his head and said, I'm talking about the origin of the virus. Most of you live an isolated life in the inland. There shouldn't be many people who have been to towns or resorts, right? That's right. Our tribe does not communicate with the outside world except for occasionally sending a few people to the town to study. And the resort is also a sad place for our tribe, so no one will go there. Yeruima herself was sent to study, so she can speak English. Xian Mei followed Luo Guang's thoughts and said, so if they spread the virus, it would be impossible for such a large-scale biochemical crisis to occur overnight, and there is no sign. That's right. As for the research institute, we have no evidence to prove that it was the people here who caused the leak, so I said that the mastermind cannot be determined. Since it is impossible to be sure, Luo Guang did not say anything else. He changed the topic that everyone was interested in and said, however, we now have immune people and samples of tribal viruses, so I can apply for evacuation from the top. After all, the faster the vaccine is produced, the faster the biochemical crisis here can be solved. Luo, I remember you said that the evacuation ship has a limited number of people. Logan thought about this problem and said, I counted it. After the people in this room and Matutello who are still on the ship, it seems to be almost full. What about Sinemayi and others? Cold Luo Guang said in Chinese. What? Logan didn't understand what Luo Guang meant by this English word for a while. Wang Wei, I answered Logan and the others, it means there is nothing we can do. By the way, is the situation at the rescue station not good? Xian Mei smiled bitterly and replied, not good, very bad. Now the rescue station is basically the base with the most survivors on the entire island, so Jin decided to stay there to help. After we evacuate this time, I will see if we can send someone to pick up some survivors first, Luo Guang said, to improve the favor of Logan and other immune people. That's the only way. Xian Mei didn't have any good ideas. By the way, Mo Wen wanted to join the topic, but just as he started, he heard someone knocking on the door. It was Dr. West who sent someone to say that the test results were out. Thanks for the votes, meow. Asterisk. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 120. Chapter 117, Falling Out. What's the result? Luo Guang, Mo Wen, and the immunes came to Dr. West's laboratory and asked. West had some serious dark circles under his eyes, but he was in good spirits. He said excitedly, it's amazing to find that all the immunes are O-type blood. For some reason, the zombie virus will not mutate or reproduce in their bodies, but will directly die. In the blood of the tribesmen, we found relatively stable zombie viruses. Perhaps because of the evolution over the years, these tribesmen have developed a certain immunity to the zombie virus, so the zombie virus has remained latent in their bodies and will not turn them into zombies. Of course, if the tribesmen die, they will most likely become zombies immediately. Does this prion discriminate against other blood types? Luo Guang was absent-minded. Doctor, we don't quite understand what you said. It's just a matter of one sentence. Can a vaccine or antidote be made? Sam B asked anxiously. West replied regretfully, unless we give the infected people a full-body blood transfusion, but that method is too impractical. Does that mean that you can't make a vaccine or antidote in your current situation? Luo Guang confirmed. Yes, unless we can find the original virus that causes biochemistry, which is the sample that was burned by the fire as we said before. Thinking of that, West couldn't help but curse those animal protection people in his heart several times. In this case, it seems unnecessary for us to stay here. Luo Guang looked back at the immunes behind him. West heard that Luo Guang and others seemed to be leaving, and hurriedly said, there is no original virus sample, but as long as the immunes are here, I will be able to research an antidote sooner or later. It's too late, we have to leave, Luo Guang said. West did not answer Luo Guang's words, but asked Mo Wen's opinion, but Mo Wen looked at Luo Guang and did not answer West's question. West, who thought he was extremely smart, immediately understood who the real person in charge of the team was, and asked tremblingly, who are you? Red Claw Force, an investigator sent by the official to investigate the biochemical crisis on Benoi Island. Luo Guang's simple words made West tremble with fear. West recalled what he had said and hurriedly said, it's really not us who leaked the virus. Show me the evidence, I need all your research data, and we also need you to help us test a drug. Luo Guang's words seemed to be a death sentence for West, because those research data were the results of his many years. No. You have no right to do this, West loudly rejected Luo Guang, attracting the attention of the researchers outside. Luo Guang's response was unexpected to West. He said, I know you won't give it to us, but I'm sorry to tell you that I have the right to ask you to provide it. Of course, I'm not unkind, so I cannot take your research data now, but what about the official investigation later? Hearing Luo Guang's words, West breathed a sigh of relief and said, Thank you, I have my own way with the official. By the way, you just said you want us to help test a medicine. Yes, after saying that, Luo Guang took out the vaccine found in the hospital from his backpack. This was Luo Guang's real purpose. West looked at the packaging on the vaccine and asked curiously, Vaccine from Will Pharma Pharmaceuticals? Why do you want to test this? You know we are doing antibiochemicals, and we will want to test things like medicines. Luo Guang confirmed that there was nothing wrong with the other party's reaction and replied, Okay. I'll ask someone to do the test, which will probably take some time. West called an assistant in, took the vaccine from Luo Guang's hand, and gave it to his assistant to test it. Luo Guang followed the assistant to test the vaccine, while the others continued to talk with West according to Luo Guang's request to understand their own situation. And Mo Wen was there as Luo Guang's spy. Have you got it? Luo Guang looked through the glass and saw Wang Wei walking towards him. When he saw Wang Wei walking towards him, Wang Wei nodded and replied in a low voice, Yes, as you said, disconnect the network first, then copy, and then clear the monitoring data. That's good. How about the content? Wang Wei shook his head. It seems that there is no special information worth talking about now. The most important point is that there is no direct relationship between this institute and Will Pharma Pharmaceuticals. The waiting time is long, but the result is gratifying. The vaccine contains active prions. After comparing it with the zombie virus in the institute, it is found that it is the same virus, and the similarity with the virus in the zombie body is more than 95%. The most critical evidence has been collected, and Luo Guang can officially start his plan. The next morning, although West was very reluctant to let the immune people leave, he had no choice but to agree to Luo Guang's plan. They continued to hold on here and wait for the next wave of official support. When Luo Guang led his people back, it was already past 4 in the afternoon, and everyone finally returned to the rescue station safely. After not going back for so many days, the rescue station has changed a lot. Even the open space outside the rescue building has been set up with tents and people living in it. However, where Luo Guang looked, most people were in a very depressed spirit, sitting listlessly, and dared not do anything. Sina Moi. Luo Guang and others found Sina Moi. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Cinema was not in good spirits at this time, but it was not because of hunger, but because of fatigue. You are back. I just took a look around, and it seems that there is quite enough food, Luo Guang replied. Cinema Yi smiled and talked about what happened before. That's because you didn't see the situation before. If it weren't for the fact that Jin led people to move a lot of food back from the rich area of the town yesterday, some of us would have already. I can't hold it any longer. Where's that child? Can he survive? Luo Guang remembered that he took the medicine just to save the child with a high fever. Hearing Luo Guang's words, Sina Moi's eyes darkened and he shook his head. Luo Guang sighed and said, We are leaving the island tomorrow, but we can't take you with us. Cinema's answer was calm, I know, it can't hold so many people. We will try to arrange for rescue when we go back, and we will use the channel we contacted before. Since the original plan has changed, Luo Guang now has the confidence to do things, and said to Mo Wen, are you willing to change careers and take this job? Luo? What do you mean? Mo Wen thought of a possibility. Anyway, he can be reimbursed. Luo Guang said generously, let you change your career and clear your name. The money can be discussed easily. However, you have to show your value. I understand what you mean. Banoi Island is only part of my business territory, even though it is the place where I made my fortune. I also have my manpower and resources in other places. Mo Wen began to sell himself, and he was also planning in his mind what he would need if he was allowed to take on this life-saving business. Cinema didn't say anything. He knew Mo Wen's identity. Although he was involved in smuggling, he still had a bottom line and had never been a human trafficker. After Luo Guang explained various things to everyone, he also received Susanna's text message and the plan was approved. Early the next morning, everyone returned to the ship where Serper was. Are they immune? Have the battle data been collected? Serper came out in person, with 2 bodyguards in suits behind him. On the other side, the Papua New Guinea National Army also came over. The leader waved to let the soldiers behind him take over the people behind Luo Guang. Wait a minute, they are from our Red Claws. Luo Guang raised his hand and said. The leader of the National Army is Colonel Sam Hardy of the island's escort force, who is also the commander of a reinforced company. After hearing Luo Guang's words, he raised his hand to stop his men's operations and looked to the other side. Dr. Serper. Luo, they may have the virus on them. We are just going to isolate them temporarily. Serper looked personable and stood up and said. I know, but we have to follow our procedures. After all, we are professionals. Haha, but there are only 2 of you here, and there is no isolation equipment. Serper asked, how do you ensure that the virus will not spread? Where can it spread? This is not an airborne virus. The smile on Luo Guang's face seemed to be mocking him. Seeing Luo Guang's smile, Serper suddenly felt angry in his heart, and said in a louder tone, you are responsible for the safety of the people. If you can't find a reason to refute, do you have to be morally kidnapped? Serper, did you buy your doctorate? Luo Guang did not hide his mocking expression at all now. He had decided to fall out, and naturally he would not tolerate Serpo, an arrogant person. Lieutenant Colonel Sam on the other side watched the 2 people fighting and did not dare to speak. Although Luo Guang hit the point, Dr. Serper regained his composure and said seriously, they carry the virus, isn't that true? There is no virus on them. Luo Guang pointed to Logan, Sam B, Pina, and Xian Mei. What, am I the person responsible for this biohazard incident? Choked by Luo Guang's words, Serper changed his strategy and planned to use his position to suppress Luo Guang. You were before, but in the early hours of last night, that is, at midnight this morning, you were no longer. This operation will be solely responsible for our Red Claws. Serper didn't receive any message from his superiors at all yesterday. You fart, why didn't I receive the message? Because Wolf Farmer is suspected of being involved in this biological crisis. Luo Guang's words were unequivocal. He had submitted the latest evidence to the Red Claws through the channels of Organization X the night before yesterday. What? Serper was very nervous, took a few steps back, and shouted, didn't you say it was caused by the research that day? It seems that your memory is not very good. I only said that there is such a research institute that is studying those viruses, but I never said that that research institute caused the biochemical crisis. Luo Guang said this deliberately at the time in order to make Serper relax his vigilance and send someone to pick him up and others. Luo Guang also paid attention to his wording to avoid following the truth. You, Serper, who felt superior to others, was forced to a dead end by a big-headed soldier. For a moment, he didn't know how to refute the other party. Finally, in order to obtain information, he hurriedly asked, what evidence do you have to prove that it was our company? Let me tell you, if you dare to slander our company, we will definitely sue you. Luo Guang sighed and said, oh, Dr. Serper? Why not change your name to Idiot Serper? Haha, you have no evidence. Seeing that Luo Guang didn't answer his question, Sepper couldn't help but feel relieved. I said before that it was suspected, but I didn't say that your company really did it. When we investigated the institute, we found that your company was also suspected of participating in their virus research, and some researchers also said that you were involved. You actually believed the suspect's words. Are you mentally ill? Serper sneered. The largest investor in the institute is Mayor Todd, and the mayor was pushed to power by your Wilf Pharma manufacturing company. Your company even bribed the mayor many times to do things for you. Serper found a point of rebuttal, and he said this with a very confident look. It may be that the mayor just insisted on his own way, and our company was not aware of it. The people around heard the conversation between the two and felt that the amount of information was huge. They were trying their best to think about whether what Luo Guang said was true or false. Luo Guang checked the time on his watch and confirmed that the Red Claw's new recruits should have completed the task of preserving the evidence of the hospital's vaccines before answering. It is indeed possible, but it is also possible that you are aware of it. These are uncertain, so I have always said that your company is just a suspect. Bringing the topic back, Luo Guang concluded, that is why your company is no longer suitable to continue to be responsible for this biochemical crisis. How could the people above believe your one-sided words and let our company withdraw? Serper did not believe that the company's backers would sit back and watch this happen, and turned to Lieutenant Colonel Sam and said, Sam, don't listen to him, I am still the highest commander here, I order you to lock them all up. Hearing Serper's words, Luo Guang did not say anything. In his opinion, Lieutenant Colonel Sam was good at standing in line. Sure enough, after hearing what Dr. Serper said, Lieutenant Colonel Sam did not command his men to act. Lieutenant Colonel Sam also hated the arrogant and domineering Dr. Serper in front of him, but his superior was controlled by Dr. Serper's superior, so he had to be the other party's lackey. Now the situation is not only a game between Luo Guang and Sepper, but also a confrontation between the forces behind the two sides. This is not something that Lieutenant Colonel Sam can get involved in. It will bring trouble to his country. Sam, what are you still standing there for? Sepper has no patience now and yelled again. Lieutenant Colonel Sam shook his head and said, sorry, if what Luo Guang said is true, you no longer have the power to command me to do things, so I need to confirm the situation with my superiors now. After saying that, Lieutenant Colonel Sam was about to send someone to contact the higher UPS, but he didn't expect that the person in the radio room came over first. He saw that he was holding a piece of paper in his hand and handed it to Lieutenant Colonel Sam. This copy is almost over, and the protagonist doesn't have to listen to others and go to various places to do tasks next time. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 121. Chapter 118 Scapegoat. You guys, Control Serper and the others. Lieutenant Colonel Sam glanced at the contents on the paper, then ordered a few people and directly ordered Serper to be controlled. Serper was shocked when he saw this, and immediately yelled, what are you doing? Do you know who is above me? Lieutenant Colonel Sam sneered, raised the paper in his hand, and said, the information transmitted above mentioned that your position was handed over to the head of the Red Claws in the early hours of last night, and the person who signed it mentioned it's the backer you mentioned many times before. Lieutenant Colonel Sam had only received this information at this time, and Luo Guang was a little cautious, so he did it intentionally to avoid alerting the enemy and also for the dramatic scene in front of him. Impossible, Serper hurriedly hid behind his bodyguard and shouted, I am a PhD graduate from a prestigious university. I am a valuable talent of the company. I am the expatriate person in charge of important projects. The company will not abandon me. After saying that, Serper was about to take out his cell phone and question the person on it, but his hand was grabbed by the bodyguard beside him. You Serper had only a look of horror on his face at this time. The bodyguards following him were sent by the company. At this time, Serper already understood that these two bodyguards were not only the company's emphasis on his safety, but also a form of surveillance on him. The actions of the bodyguard in front of him were clearly telling Serper that he had really been abandoned by the company. Impossible. What Serper said at this time was no longer as arrogant as before, only filled with indescribable despair and fear. Without a backer, Sepper couldn't imagine how the people he had offended these days would get into trouble. The bodyguards looked indifferent. They were only protecting Serper for company work, and they had no loyalty or affection for the mean Serper. The bodyguard who strangled Sepper's wrist tightly said to Luo Guang, "Our company will cooperate with your investigation." Luo Guang didn't expect them to react so quickly. Looking carefully, the two bodyguards didn't have headphones on their ears. This made the bodyguards' actions look less like a temporary decision and more like someone from their company. An emergency plan. While thinking about Wilpharma Pharmaceutical Company's next move, Luo Guang felt the vibration of his cell phone, took it out and took a look before putting it away. "Lieutenant Colonel Sam, I need your cooperation to imprison Dr. Serper first. As for the two bodyguards, please place them under house arrest separately." Luo Guang's words were fair and above board. After hearing this, the two bodyguards looked at each other. After confirming each other's views, the two bodyguards nodded to express that they had no objection. Lieutenant Colonel Sam obeyed the order and asked his soldiers to take them down. At the same time, he also specifically told his soldiers to protect Dr. Serper's safety. He was not thinking about hedging his bets or selling Sepper a favor. After hearing Luo Guang's words about putting Sepper's bodyguard under house arrest, he immediately understood that this was to prevent Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals from killing people and silencing them. Trick. Do you have any other instructions? Luo Guang didn't have any rank epaulets or armbands on him, so Lieutenant Colonel Sam didn't know how to properly call Luo Guang. "Just call me Luo Guang. Besides Serpo and his bodyguards, are there anyone from their company here? Control them first, and leave those behind me to the people in our army who will take over." Luo Guang had already heard the sound of the helicopter, pointed to the black spot in the distance and said. In addition to helicopters, the Red Claw troops that came over this time also had two ships converted from cargo ships. They were equipped with helicopter landing pads. They did not install various naval guns or missiles. However, in order to prevent speedboats from landing, there were two ships on both sides of the hull. A heavy machine gun is mounted on the side. After a while, the helicopter of the Red Claws landed on the deck of the ship. The person who came down was Tanya, who had been thinking about going on a mission. Compared to before, Tanya's clothes were much less revealing, which was disappointing. "Luo, long time no see." Tanya stepped forward and hammered Luo Guang's chest and asked, "The immune over there is the key to solving this biological crisis." Luo Guang nodded, introduced the people behind him to Tanya, named Logan and the other four, and said, "These people are all immune. Although their blood has been tested in the research institute and the virus in their bodies has been exterminated, they are still just to be on the safe side, check it again." The four Logans had no objection to this and nodded. The remaining civilians are Urima, Morvin and Matutello. Luo Guang bypassed Urima, who was also immune, and arranged for Mauen and Matutello first, saying, "The two of them are familiar with the terrain near here, and they also have many ships. They can assist us later. Save civilians." "I understand what you mean." Tanya wrote down Luo Guang's words. An important purpose of her coming here was to save people. "Luo, what about me?" Urima was a little uneasy. She didn't understand why Luo Guang didn't need her to follow Logan and the others who were immune, even though she was also immune. Luo Guang replied seriously, "Urima, do you think you are immune to the zombie virus? Isn't it me? I ate the meat, but it didn't show any physical characteristics. Yurima suppressed her inner uneasiness and looked at Luo Guang. Maybe. But there is a big difference between you and Logan and the others. You are from the tribe. What do you mean? Can't people from tribes be immune? In order to embolden herself, Yurima almost yelled these words. She felt that Luo Guang was discriminating against her origin. Luo Guang shook his head and said, "Calm down, do you still remember what West said? The so-called immunity of your tribe people is actually just the body's immunity that allows those viruses to lurk for a long time." This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Hearing Luo Guang's words, Yurima finally regained her composure and asked, "What do you mean? You may be the key to developing a vaccine or antidote, but you also have the possibility of becoming a time bomb that causes a biochemical crisis." Luo Guang also said this to Tanya. "Then what do you want?" Yurima asked, hunching her shoulders and bending slightly. "I'm explaining this just to tell you that we have no ill intentions towards you, it's just a precautionary measure." Regarding her own life, Yurima still has questions. What will happen to me in the future? First, cleaning and disinfection, then blood testing, and then the next step will depend on the test results. Wang Wei had chatted with Yurima a few times in the Holy Land, so it was easier for Yurima to accept what Wang Wei said to Yurima than if Luo Guang said it. "I won't be sliced and studied, right?" Yurima thought of the science fiction movies she had watched. Wang Wei chuckled and said, "No, but you have to cooperate with us." Yurima kept nodding, indicating that she would cooperate. "Our ship has almost arrived near here. Let me take the immune people there first." Tanya acted vigorously and was about to send those people Luo Guang brought out to the ship of her own army. Luo Guang grabbed Tanya's arm, possessed him slightly, and said something in Tanya's ear, asking her to pay attention to Yurima. Tanya nodded and led everyone onto the helicopter. "Sam, what's the situation around now?" After arranging the people to be brought out, Luo Guang called Lieutenant Colonel Sam and walked to the bridge. "The scope of the biological crisis has been controlled," Lieutenant Colonel Sam concluded first and said, "Thank you for the satellite provided by your country. We have found traces of survivors on other islands. We have made a good positioning and are just waiting for one. The time is right." "How is the situation on Banluli Island?" Luo Guang thought for a moment and asked. "Luo, what you want to ask about is the prison, right?" Luo Guang nodded. "Biohazard was very important, but the people in the prison were all international felons, so the matter there was urgent." Lieutenant Colonel Sam mentally confirmed the contents of the confidentiality agreement before replying, "We have sent people there and they will make things perfect." "That's good. Those people sneaking out will be troublesome. I don't think your country is willing to make such omissions." "We understand," Lieutenant Colonel Sam replied. Luo Guang thought of something and asked, "By the way, none of the people you sent there will have the rank of colonel, right?" Lieutenant Colonel Sam, who was walking beside Luo Guang, stopped and asked in surprise, "How did you know?" Luo Guang told Lieutenant Colonel Sam what he knew. "He contacted the people on Banoi Island to let those who were immune pass." Lieutenant Colonel Sam thought about the significance of this matter, and his expression suddenly changed. Luo Guang did not ask the reason for the change in the other person's face. "Luo, I'm sorry, I have something urgent that I need to report immediately." Lieutenant Colonel Sam still didn't tell Luo Guang the matter. Luo Guang waved his hand and asked him to do his own thing. "I know the way." When Sam heard Luo Guang's words, he ran directly towards the radio room. "Let's go see Serper." Luo Guang and Wang Wei made their way unimpeded to the room where Serper was detained. "Are you here to laugh at me, a loser?" Luo Guang heard from the guard that Serpo was crazy, but now it seemed that Serpo was sitting there motionless. "Do you have anything to say about the biological crisis that occurred on Banoi Island and the surrounding islands?" Luo Guang moved 2 chairs for himself and Wang Wei to sit. Serper raised his head, his face was ashen, It seemed that what had just happened had hit him hard. Sepper didn't answer, just looked at Luo Guang. It doesn't matter if you don't tell me. To be honest, the real purpose of your company sending you here is to be used as a scapegoat when something goes wrong. Serper's eyes flashed with anger directed at Will Pharma Pharmaceuticals. What Luo Guang said was just a guess. You must have participated in the research on the zombie virus in this incident, otherwise the company would have no point in pushing you out. But I think you are not an important figure in this virus research project. After all, your PhD in virology is fake. On the day he met Serper, Luo Guang mobilized the power of organization. Serper finally couldn't help but answered Luo Guang, I am the person in charge of researching the virus test. The other party's words showed that Wilfama Pharmaceutical Company was indeed researching the virus for this biochemical crisis. Responsible and tested? In the end, the virus was a great success. How successful were you? No matter how perfect the test results are, does it have anything to do with you to the superiors? Luo Guang revealed the original intention of Wilfama Pharmaceutical Company's arrangement in one sentence, you are just a discarded child that the company can throw out at any time. With or without you, will it have any impact on the company's virus research? Although it was just Luo Guang's speculation without evidence, it was close to the actual situation. That is why Serper, who also felt that the company had designed him in this way, reacted to Luo Guang's words. What will happen to my fate next? Serper seemed to have accepted his fate and figured it out, and asked. But Luo Guang felt that the temperament of the person in front of him had changed a little, becoming more introverted and dangerous. Who knows? Luo Guang had already obtained the confession that Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals had studied the zombie virus, so he didn't care about Serper's fate. Luo Guang and Wang Wei stood up and were about to leave the room. Luo Guang turned around, looked at Serper over Wang Wei, and said, you still have a chance to change your fate, think about it carefully. Serper knew that Luo Guang meant for him to betray the company and identify the company's crimes, but at this time, he had not made up his mind. Wang Wei walked beside Luo Guang and said, will he identify the company? I don't know, and I don't care. Luo Guang didn't think that Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals could be tripped up by just a small person. Wang Wei stretched his body, exhaled, and said, Tanya is here, so our mission is over. Yes, but there are still some things we need to follow up, and don't forget the mission report. Luo Guang and the others walked towards the virus research laboratory installed on the ship. It was a place set up by Serper arbitrarily, so that Serper could have a place to study viruses. When the two arrived there, Lieutenant Colonel Sam had already had all the researchers inside arrested and detained. You collect intelligence here, and I'll go to Serper's room to see. Serper's room was next to the laboratory, so Luo Guang and Wang Wei split up and began to collect evidence. Luo Guang walked into Serper's room, which was probably not small, about 10 square meters. It was supposed to be the captain's room, but Serper took it directly. The decoration inside had a lot more crafts, and there were also bottles of opened red wine. Luo Guang looked at the brand, called Mouton Rothschild Winery, which looked quite high-end. After looking around, Luo Guang found that there were many books here, mostly books on biology and virology, but he didn't find many files on the desk. After a brief look at the files, he found that they were all radio communication reports submitted by Lieutenant Colonel Sam. The contents were basically the situation of various places in the blockade area, as well as some action reports of Lieutenant Colonel Sam. Sam, did Serper ask you to catch the zombies and bring them back to the ship? Luo Guang contacted Lieutenant Colonel Sam using the phone in the room. It was not Sam who answered the phone, but his adjutant. However, the adjutant also knew about this, so he gave Luo Guang a positive answer. After Luo Guang cursed, he directly ordered the adjutant to let them deal with the zombies first. After explaining this, Luo Guang cracked Serper's computer and checked the information inside. However, Luo Guang did not see any information about Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals in the computer. Instead, the evidence of Serper's private research on the virus was directly placed on the table, as if he was afraid that others would not know. Luo Guang knew that this was the backup plan of Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals. Someone wanted to remotely control the computer to clean up all the information about the company and sent evidence of Serper's crime. The last day of February, please vote. Asterisk. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 122. Chapter 119 Monster with Hundreds of Faces. While Luo Guang continued to search, a heavy-faced Lieutenant Colonel Sam led his adjutant and several soldiers to find Luo Guang. Luo Guang saw that Lieutenant Colonel Sam, who was only carrying a pistol before, was also carrying an M16A2 assault rifle. He felt something bad. Something big must have happened, so he threw away the books in his hand and asked, "What happened?" "Luo, something happened to the warehouse where the zombies were kept. An entire container of zombies was released. Now the lower cabin has been occupied." Luo Guang was worried that this was a conspiracy of Wilpharma Pharmaceutical Company in order to attack the east and west, and continued to issue instructions. "Lieutenant Colonel Sam, you lead people to blockade everywhere and isolate the zombies in the lower cabin. I will lead people to confirm that Serper security, and those you contact to monitor the bodyguards." Lieutenant Colonel Sam obeyed the order and asked the adjutant to stay here to contact the person monitoring the bodyguards, and at the same time cooperate with Luo Guang in the operation. After hearing what Lieutenant Colonel Sam said, the adjutant immediately contacted the soldiers in charge of house arrest bodyguards. No response. There was no response after calling several times with the walkie-talkie hanging in front of his shoulder. The adjutant felt bad and reported the matter to Luo Guang. The two things would not come together by such a coincidence, which made Luo Guang acquiesce in his heart that everything including the escape of the zombies was not an accident, and he quickly thought about the significance of what Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals did. The data on Serper's computer has been cleared. Is it from the research laboratory? With Luo Guang thinking like this, Luo Guang led the team to find Wang Wei to ask about the situation. However, Wang Wei's situation was the same as Luo Guang's. There was not much paper information, and the information in the computer did not mention anything about Wilpharma Pharmaceutical Company. Matter. Wang Wei learned about the situation from the adjutant and asked, "Is it possible that their purpose is to silence everyone here? Is it possible, just with zombies?" The adjutant spoke to the side and said, "The people here are the elites of our country, and you two are also masters among masters." Several people discussed the situation, but they did not stop and ran towards where Serper was. "There is news from the control room that the bodyguards have gone to the lower cabin." The adjutant finally waited for a response from the control room. At this time, Luo Guang and others were not far from the room where Serper was imprisoned. When Luo Guang heard the adjutant's words, he stopped and immediately said to the adjutant, "Adjutant, send someone to guard the lifeboat while you continue to perform the task of ensuring Serper's safety." "Guang, have you thought of something?" Wang Wei saw the most serious expression on Luo Guang's face in recent days. Luo Guang turned around and was about to leave. "Let's talk while walking. The adjutant will carry out the task immediately." "Yes." The adjutant did not salute or ask any more questions. He could see that Luo Guang was very anxious. The two of them walked to the lower level of the cabin. Luo Guang finished his guess in one sentence, "It's not easy for the zombies to wipe out the people here, but if they want to blow up the ship and sink it, it will be much easier." Wang Wei thought about the two bodyguards and instantly understood why Luo Guang was so worried. "Sam, there is no need to isolate the zombies. You should evacuate to the upper level and deck of the ship immediately." Luo Guang contacted Lieutenant Colonel Sam and told him his guess. Lieutenant Colonel Sam knew that Luo Guang's order was meant to protect people like himself, but this ship was an important ship in the small country of Papua New Guinea, so Lieutenant Colonel Sam did not want anything to happen to the ship. otherwise even if he was alive, if he goes out, his career will be ruined. After much thought, Lieutenant Colonel Sam asked the control room to report to himself and Luo Guang the real-time locations of Sepe's 2 bodyguards. Then he asked all the soldiers following him to evacuate to the upper level to ensure the lifeboats. On the other side, Luo Guang didn't hear Lieutenant Colonel Sam's reply, thinking that the other party might not act according to his words, but Luo Guang didn't try to persuade him anymore, and instead asked Wang Wei, "Is there enough explosives in the bag?" Wang Wei, who is proficient in explosions, understood what Luo Guang meant by his question. Those explosives were used to prevent the ship from being sunk and the 2 of them being trapped in the cabin. But this is the worst of the worst. Underwater explosions are not easy to deal with. If the explosion causes bubbles to pulsate, you can send yourself to the west. It's enough, but it's not safe. Speaking of which, we don't need to be so desperate, right? In Wang Wei's view, Luo Guang and himself should stay away from this kind of thing and leave as soon as possible. Luo Guang stopped, turned around and said to Wang Wei, "You are right." After Wang Wei woke up, there was no need for him to fight so hard to go to the dangerous lower cabin. The 2 of them only had to protect the important witness Serper, and for Luo Guang and the others, taking down a lifeboat was not a problem. It's difficult, so whether Lieutenant Colonel Sam's ship sinks or not has nothing to do with Luo Guang. Luo Guang smiled bitterly in his heart. He thought of Wang Wei's previous words. Has he really become kinder? Obviously, in the several biohazard incidents before or after time travel, if he didn't have some agenda, he wouldn't have asked for trouble or gotten involved in danger. Luo Guang thought about the problem very quickly. Within a few seconds, Luo Guang took steps again and said, "We are on the same ship now. Those 2 bodyguards were on the ship for a long time. How do you know that those lifeboats are there? I wasn't manipulated by those 2 bodyguards." The situation was urgent, so Wang Wei didn't say anything else. After this period of time, she found that Luo Guang in front of her was slightly different from the person in her memory. Sometimes Wang Wei felt that Luo Guang in front of her was actually someone else, which made her feel scared. Although the 2 bodyguards were very clever in knocking out all the cameras along the way, they could find them as long as they followed the order in which the cameras were disconnected. Following the prompts from the monitoring room, several people quickly found one of the bodyguards who was installing the bomb. Bang! Wang Wei blew the cabin door open directly. After the explosion, the shock wave would cause greater harm to the human body in the confined space in the cabin. Fortunately, he moved a table in advance as his shelter, so at this time he could still crawl on the ground by instinct, but the shock wave still hit the bodyguard's body like an iron fist, making him unable to move. The bodyguard who was able to move a little bit managed to stand up, turned around, and held an assault rifle on the table. Without aiming, he fired directly at the door. However, the bullets fired by the bodyguard all hit the iron wall in the cabin, and did not cause any harm to Luo Guang and the others. That was because the corridor was very narrow, so Luo Guang and the others had to stay away from the hatch before detonating. The shock wave generated by the explosion also swept towards the corridor where Luo Guang and the others were, so the 2 did not take this opportunity to rush in. Wang Wei opened her mouth and made an apologetic mouth shape. She overestimated the strength of the hatch inside the warship, so she used a little more explosives when she blasted the door open this time. Luo Guang did not look at Wang Wei. His hearing was not affected by the huge explosion. As soon as the other party stopped shooting, Luo Guang rushed out. After entering the door, he jumped to the side and avoided the muzzle of the assault rifle in the bodyguard's hand. The bodyguard's hearing had not yet recovered, and he did not hear the sound of someone coming in. At this time, his movements were very slow. Before he could aim at Luo Guang, he was shot dead by Luo Guang. Wang Wei walked in and found the location of the bomb at a glance. He breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It hasn't been activated yet. I'll go and make the bomb harmless." As soon as the voice fell, the bodyguard's body suddenly shook, and the muscles under the clothes began to swell, bursting the clothes, revealing irregular lumps of flesh inside. This is. Although Wang Wei was surprised by the situation in front of him, he still reacted quickly and emptied the bullets of the AK-74 assault rifle in his hand. Luo Guang also discovered the situation and used the shotgun in his hand to output to the head and heart of the bodyguard's body. Finally, the thing was strangled in the cradle before it resurrected. "What is that?" Wang Wei asked. Luo Guang didn't know either, so he could only answer, "You dismantle the bomb, I'll take a look." Soon, Luo Guang found some clues from the chest of the bodyguard's body. Luo Guang pulled out a device that was partially broken by bullets from the rotten flesh. Luo Guang carefully checked it and found a broken needle on the strange device. It seems that this thing caused the corpse to turn into a corpse, Luo Guang guessed. Wang Wei, who had just dismantled the bomb, came over with a plastic bag, put the device into the bag, took a look, and said, "Maybe the bodyguard's death will trigger this device and inject some substances into the body. Who knows, let's continue to find another bodyguard to see the situation." Because Lieutenant Colonel Sam was chasing another bodyguard, Luo Guang couldn't contact him at this time. In fact, the device on the bodyguard was a syringe, which contained a kind of medicine for treatment. The reason why the bodyguard could quickly recover his ability to move after the explosion was because of this thing injected into the body, but this thing had a very strong side effect, that is, there was a high probability of mutating into a monster that was neither human nor ghost. Because Luo Guang shot the bodyguard in the head, the medical medicine in the body got rid of some restrictions in order to save the host's life, and grew wildly without restraint, which manifested as a tumor that burst through the clothes. After taking pictures quickly and collecting evidence, Luo Guang took Wang Wei to continue to move forward to the place where the other bodyguard was. However, Luo Guang and Wang Wei were still halfway there when a loud bang louder than the sound of Wang Wei's door blasting, accompanied by a violent shaking of the ship. "Oops, retreat." Luo Guang certainly understood what the situation meant, and shouted to Wang Wei to retreat. The hull began to tilt slowly to one side, but the tilt angle was not large, and Luo Guang and Wang Wei had a good sense of balance, so the tilted corridor did not hinder the two people's speed, and they quickly returned to the deck. As soon as he returned to the deck, Luo Guang heard Sam's adjutant yelling for people to put down the lifeboat, and Luo Guang also saw Serper being held by two soldiers next to the adjutant. Luo Guang asked Wang Wei to contact the Red Claws to rescue people, and then he found the adjutant and asked, "How is the situation? Where is Lieutenant Colonel Sam?" "Not too bad." The monitoring room said that only some compartments on the right bottom floor are flooded, so it won't sink for a while. The adjutant didn't seem panicked. It seems that the impact of the explosion just now was not particularly large. "The other bodyguard has been killed by us, and the bomb he installed has been removed." Wang Wei, who had contacted the rescue, joined the topic. Luo Guang asked, "How is Lieutenant Colonel Sam? He should have chased the bodyguard, but it seems that he failed. Has there been a reply?" "I called, but there was no response. I have asked the monitoring room to keep an eye on the captain's whereabouts." The adjutant's face was full of worry. As soon as the adjutant finished speaking, his intercom made a sound, "It's a big deal. The captain is coming up now, but there is a monster chasing him behind him. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading." The people in the monitoring room even forgot to call the adjutant's name or rank. That monster should be a bodyguard. Luo Guang recalled the current situation of the bodyguard he had solved and speculated. Wang Wei saw Lieutenant Colonel Sam running out and pointed at the monster behind him and said, "The monster refers to that thing." Following Lieutenant Colonel Sam was a long, worm-like thing, more than 2 meters wide and more than 5 meters long. There were many human arms waving irregularly on the monster, and the legs and feet below were all human legs, crawling like a centipede, and countless faces appeared on the front of the monster. Luo Guang saw that the face in the center was the face of the bodyguard of Separe. "Get out of the way." Luo Guang loaded a single-headed bullet, shouted, and fired directly after Lieutenant Colonel Sam flew to the side. A shot directly opened a big hole in the bodyguard's face, and the mouth on the monster's face made a huge wail at the same time. After the body rushed forward for a while, all the legs and feet suddenly stopped working, and the body fell down, relying on inertia to slide a few meters away. Good shooting. Lieutenant Colonel Sam was chased all the way and tried to shoot back, but because he was running all the way, he turned around and shot only to repel the monster, and did not hit the face in the center of the monster. Luo Guang did not respond, and asked Lieutenant Colonel Sam to get up quickly. The angle of the boat's tilt was not large, and the monster did not slide to the side of the boat. Luo Guang took out his pistol and started shooting at other faces one by one. He was worried that each face of the monster represented a head, and the other heads might also be able to control the body of the monster. Luo Guang hit the second face from the inside out, and the monster could no longer pretend and responded, but the monster's actions were beyond everyone's expectations. In simple terms, after losing the control of the bodyguard's head, each head in the monster's body now had its own ideas. The monster, which could not even agree on which way to go, was now dancing and spinning in place, looking both weird and funny. "Everyone shoot at his face." Luo Guang gave an order, and the soldiers without other special instructions raised their weapons and poured all the bullets in the magazine at the front of the monster. The monster was beaten by everyone and screamed. After losing more than half of its heads, the monster's heads finally agreed to turn around and run away. But Luo Guang and Wang Wei took out the incendiary grenade and threw it at the moment the monster turned around. This was specially prepared by Luo Guang to deal with the biochemical monster in front of him, and there was no need to worry about causing a fire when used on the steel deck. The monster was instantly ignited. Luo Guang asked the others to stop shooting, and then rushed over to launch a final attack on the remaining face, head, of the monster. After smashing all the faces that were lucky enough to survive the storm of bullets, the monster finally stopped moving, and the others did not dare to approach to check. Except for some people who continued to evacuate to the lifeboat, the others watched the monster slowly burn with a nervous look. "Today's work is so annoying. I haven't eaten anything since this morning, so I decided to slack off and update now. By the way, I'm asking for monthly tickets at the beginning of the month." Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 123. Chapter 120. The Donald Family. There are quite a few people who have seen that monster. Compared to zombies that are still humanoid, this monster with hundreds of faces makes people feel scary. They can't help but wonder if they accidentally broke into the set of a thriller. But for Luo Guang, the burning monster with hundreds of faces was like a bonfire at a bonfire party, heralding the perfect end of Luo Guang's mission, and it was something worth being excited about. Just before Luo Guang fired the first shot, Wang Wei took out his camera early and took a close-up of the monster, especially the front. After solving the 100-faced monster, the helicopter of the Red Claw Army also came over. Luo Guang and Wang Wei escorted Separe to the helicopter, and then returned to the ship of the Red Claw Army in the helicopter. After Luo Guang reported the mission status to Tanya while standing, he sat on the chair in front of Tanya and started a new conversation in a relatively equal manner. "Luo, according to the information you just received, Wilfama Pharmaceutical Company is the mastermind behind this biological crisis. What about the Institute of Virology and the primitive tribes?" The other party was Tanya, who hated the evil of biohazard, so Luo Guang told Tanya everything except the things related to his own secrets. Primitive tribes are the origin of the virus. You can see that those tribesmen actually only suffered from Kuru disease with an incubation period of more than 10 years. Therefore, Urema is very important, especially for us humans to conquer Kuru disease, or it is very effective in defeating prions. "I understand. I will ask trustworthy people to follow up on that aspect, and the Army's Research Institute has also begun to be established. Tanya felt that because this matter was of great significance, Luo Guang would skip the Research Institute and talk about the tribe first. Luo Guang asked, "What is the composition of the people who formed the institute?" "Anti-biochemical fighters, the military, researchers from various countries, etc." Tanya looked around and saw that she was alone, and continued, "Sams lets these people work together in order to supervise each other." Luo Guang thought that Tanya should have asked Sams, so he stopped asking. He also had the goal of establishing his own research institute, but he had not found any like-minded scientists until now. What about the research institute? Seeing that Luo Guang didn't ask any more questions, Tanya brought the topic back and asked. After Luo Guang considered his words, he said, "I have a guess about the whole thing. The people at the Research Institute obtained the tribe's origin virus by chance, and then West and the others continued to study it, and the first research institute was set up on Panlali Island." After speaking, Luo Guang added something about the Panlali Island Research Institute. "The original sample of the virus was burned. You suspect that Will Pharma Pharmaceuticals obtained the virus from this incident." Tanya got an important piece of information from Luo Guang's words, and she immediately guessed the reason why Luo Guang added this. So Wilpharma Pharmaceutical Company knows that Dr. West and the others have built a new research institute on Panlali Island, so it can logically put the blame on them. Luo Guang nodded in agreement, and then said, "By the way, how about the vaccine at the hospital? It has been brought back under preservation and has been tested." Tanya thought about the vaccine and asked, "But according to the sampling inspection, only 4/5 of those vaccines are active viruses, and the rest are normal vaccines." Luo Guang thought quickly and immediately came up with a guess: they spread the virus and then make money by selling vaccines. After all, this virus is not strong and cannot be used as a biological weapon. It's possible. But they also have an excuse for doing this because there is a problem with the supervision of vaccine products, and it is said that that guy Serper is secretly causing trouble. Tanya could think of the dirty tricks that evil companies would use with her toes. Luo Guang nodded, he could think of more methods. "So Serper is now the most important piece of evidence we have. So, wait a minute, does the bodyguard thing prove that Wilpharma Pharmaceuticals has developed biochemical weapons?" Tanya felt that she was very good and had found a major breakthrough. "They are Serper's bodyguards." Luo Guang told the other party in advance the answer to the question that Tanya was going to refute, and said, "I'm just pretending to be traitorous in order to save Serper." "Tanya, don't think that a small person can bring down a multinational pharmaceutical company. Just look at an Umbrella company still alive." Tanya looked a little discouraged. Luo Guang drank all the instant coffee in the cup, stood up, and said, "You can study the monster on the deck. You may make new discoveries." Luo Guang felt that some characteristics of this 100-faced monster were very similar to the T-virus series, so he made this suggestion. "I understand, you should go back and have a good rest. It's time for me to show off my skills." Tanya quickly cheered up and replied with great ambition. The trip back to the lighthouse country was also smooth this time. There were no accidents in the transportation vehicles Luo Guang took. It seemed that he was not a vehicle killer. The two returned to the base of the Red Claws, where they stored the equipment and submitted various evidence obtained during the mission. After that, Luo Guang and the two began a short vacation. Because Wang Wei'ai was going to the Apocalypse organization to report the situation, Luo Guang could only fly back to Chicago alone. After sending a text message to Jill asking if he was well recently, Luo Guang lay on the big velvet bed and relaxed his body. However, Luo Guang seemed to be born with a hard life. Not long after he lay down, someone knocked on the door. Luo Guang covered his head with a pillow, pretending he didn't hear anything. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. But the other party kept knocking on the door, as if he would keep knocking if Luo Guang didn't respond. Although Luo Guang could temporarily block the sound, this would lower his alert line, and finally he had no choice but to stand up. Who? Me. And me. Although Luo Guang recognized the voices of Emma Greenwell and Jack Jones, he still confirmed it again through the cat's eye before opening the door. Why are you two here? And how did you know I was back? Luo Guang asked twice when he met them. Jack smiled and said, Luo, you don't even say hello when you meet an acquaintance. This is not in line with the teachings of the country of etiquette. I'm already a high-quality person because I didn't punch you to shit, Luo Guang answered mercilessly. Jack looked around the room and didn't see any woman. He said, Tisk, you're not doing anything, why are you so angry? Okay, there's no need to come here. You must have a reason to come here. Luo Guang was too lazy to continue talking nonsense. He still had to plan where to go for this vacation, whether to go to Jill, and other things. My father asked me to come. He asked me to give this to you. It's his reward for you. Emma threw a box to Luo Guang, then told Jack to wait for him outside, and walked out. What do you mean? Luo Guang didn't quite understand and looked at Jack. Because Luo Guang saved Emma's hand, Jack knew everything and explained, the T. Veronica virus you submitted to Captain Sheffield, our researchers found it to be powerful and can bring huge benefits to our organization. That shouldn't be Captain Sheffield's reward for me, right? Luo Guang was surprised. Shouldn't the organization reward him? Jack scratched his head before answering, Captain Sheffield wanted Emma to take over his position, but the ambush caused Emma's reputation to drop a lot, so Captain Sheffield. I understand, that is to say, my credit has become Emma's credit, and the report can even say that although we stepped into an ambush, the gains were amazing. Before the other party finished speaking, Luo Guang realized that his credit had been taken away. Jack was embarrassed, glanced at the position at the door, and whispered, so Emma's reaction just now was that she didn't want to do it. Alas, it happened, so forget it. Luo Guang saved Emma, and with this credit, if Emma really took the position of Captain Sheffield, it would also be beneficial to him. What about you? Is there anything you want to talk to me about? Luo Guang asked Emma to leave alone, and thought that Jack was looking for him for something else. Jack said, have you submitted a mission for the Elixir of Life before? Luo Guang nodded to indicate that he had submitted it, and knowing that the mission seemed to have been settled, Jack said, the mission was a joke by a big shot, and I didn't expect you to take it seriously. But since it has been settled, it means that it is not all a joke, right? It is more about the yearning for immortality, and holding on to what is in your hand. That being said, it is better not to discuss this topic, otherwise it will be troublesome if you accidentally make someone unhappy with what you said. Back to the matter you asked me to find you, I received a notice from the organization. I will take you to the mansion of a family member tonight. Luo Guang touched his chin and said, it should be the Donald family that issued the mission. Since you know, then go and get ready in the afternoon, dress yourself up, and I will pick you up downstairs of the hotel at 6 o'clock in the evening. Can you bring a gun? You can only bring the organization's identity card. You can't pass the security check with anything else. Luo Guang nodded and smiled, indicating that he fully understood. After seeing Jack and Emma off, Luo Guang hummed a song and began to XZ up the important things on him. Then he used the pad of the X organization to search for clothing stores and hair salons invested by the organization to see if he could get a discount. Luo Guang used to be a social animal and had no knowledge of suits, but it didn't matter. He had seen Chow Yun-fat's God of Gamblers, so his goal this time was also very clear, to get the same style. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Luo Guang came out of the hotel gate on time. Because Luo Guang walked in the middle of the gate, the waiters on both sides of the gate had to open the door for Luo Guang. Let's go. Luo Guang, wearing sunglasses, walked to Jack Jones standing next to a Mercedes-Benz AMG CLK GTR Strassen version and said, It was a pity that he didn't find the tape of the background music of God of Gamblers in Chicago when preparing in the afternoon, otherwise he could have come out with his own BGM just now. As for the idea of changing other background music, Luo Guang rejected it at the beginning, which was not enough tribute. Luo, Jack didn't recognize Luo Guang for a while, and thought it was a dandy boy from some family. Luo Guang took out a piece of beautifully wrapped chocolate, opened the package elegantly, put the chocolate in his mouth, and gestured to the other party to drive him. Jack whispered cool, and then cooperated to open the door for Luo Guang. The two sat in the car, and Luo Guang said, "Your car is not cheap. It's not mine, it was given to me by the family to pick you up. I'm just a driver today, otherwise I can't afford this limited luxury car." Jack changed lanes and drove out of the city. The two chatted about random things, and in more than half an hour, they arrived at the gate of a luxurious villa in the suburbs. After the gate opened automatically, Jack drove about 1 kilometer inside and stopped outside a building with low-key decoration and connotation. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. After a safe full-body check, Luo Guang's chocolate and sunglasses were taken away. However, Luo Guang looked calm and everything was under control. Under the guidance of Jack, he came to a restaurant inside. Luo Guang saw that there was only a long table in the room. There was an old man sitting in the distance, cutting foie gras elegantly. There were two maids standing behind the old man, and there were bodyguards standing around like statues. Jack took Luo Guang to stand near the door, looking at the floor, and did not speak. Because Jack had reminded Luo Guang to pay attention to etiquette and other things in the car in advance, Luo Guang followed Jack and behaved very well. The old man put down his knife and fork. A maid appeared beside him at the right time and carefully wiped the corners of his mouth. Another maid held a golden basin and waited for the old man to rinse his mouth. Luo Guang had no expression on his face, but he was already laughing in his heart. He sensed the special T Veronica virus in the other person's body, so as long as Luo Guang had a thought, he could control the old man with supreme power in front of him. However, Luo Guang did not act rashly. He still had to confirm whether the old man's identity was fake. After all, this untested thing could not be directly injected into the bodies of those nobles who were afraid of death. All the food and tableware on the table were removed. The old man invited Luo Guang to take a seat, and Jack consciously stood by the wall. "Is it you, a young man, who will complete the task of the elixir of immortality?" Luo Guang was young after all. No matter how good his acting skills were, no matter how mature and steady he pretended to be, he could not deceive the old man in front of him. Yes, Luo Guang did not pretend to be cold and answered directly. "Can you tell me how you got it?" the old man asked in detail without rushing to get to the point. "I got it from the Yossiford Family Research Institute on the Rothford Island of Umbrella Corporation because this was a made-up story," Luo Guang answered simply. "What is the difference between the T Veronica virus you submitted to the task and the one you submitted to Captain Sheffield?" Luo Guang had already prepared for the other party to ask these questions, so he didn't need to cram at the last minute, and answered fluently, "I don't know the specific difference." "You actually want to test the waters and attract the attention of the top leaders at the same time, right?" the old man speculated. "If that's the case, I don't have to rush to hand over the other samples to Captain Sheffield. Because you found that those virus samples may lose their value due to improper storage," the old man retorted bluntly. Seeing this, Luo Guang also generously admitted that the old man was correct. Anyway, it didn't matter to Luo Guang what the reason was. As long as any senior person used the virus samples he made, it would be Luo Guang's victory. "Sorry, I have been very busy recently and may not be able to stabilize the update time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 124. Chapter 121 Extrasensory Perception Ability. The old man in front of him is the fifth head of the Donald family. Compared with other families in the X organization that have a history of thousands of years, the history of the Donald family does not seem to be long. In fact, the Donald family was originally a family with a long history in the UK. However, due to certain events, this once famous family had to choose to change their surname, and traveled across the ocean to ride on the trends of the New World, and the whole family came here. The American continent has reopened a new world. Bringing the topic back to the old man, his name was Corpus Donald Hicks. He was already lying on the hospital bed waiting for death to come when he received a message from organization items required for the mission. Luo Guang thoughtfully attached a shortened version of the research report and provided 2 additional samples of the same virus to the organization, which gave Corpus hope of survival. The 2 virus samples submitted by Luo Guang to Captain Sheffield were intercepted by cops and pocketed when they were officially transferred to the General Administration of Organization X for evaluation and confirmation of the submitter's remuneration. As soon as Corpus obtained that copy, he directly asked his researchers and doctors to start human experiments. The results came out quickly, and the human experiments were successful. The old man who was in a similar predicament as Corpus recovered, his physical parameters improved, and he seemed to be 10 or 20 years younger. Because Corpus was in a very bad state at that time, he might close his eyes one day and never wake up again. There were many people in his family who were ready to take action, spying on the situation in his villa, waiting for him. When he passes away, he will come immediately to cry in mourning. So after leaving a copy of the T. Veronica virus as the basis for future research and mass production, Corpus didn't mind taking a gamble. He immediately sent someone to find a suitable replacement organ, and asked a trusted doctor to the virus that Luo Guang submitted for the mission was injected into his body. Although the effect of virus injection cannot achieve true immortality, it is enough to surprise Corpus. Corpus, who could only live on nutrient solution, was able to get out of bed and walk a few steps on his own a few hours after the injection. Now he can eat some solid food such as foie gras. The bright-eyed Corpus looked at the reserved Luo Guang in front of him and said, "That mission was a mission I issued on a whim a long time ago. The reward is only a small amount and does not match the virus you provided. For me, a person who has just joined the organization, the reward for that task is already a lot," Luo Guang replied. "That's what it says, but our organization has always advocated equal compensation, so I'm giving you a chance and you can give me a new offer." Of course Corpus knew about Luo Guang's situation, but he was not joking. Compared to his own life, a dollar weighing 105 kilograms was nothing. Luo Guang did not show any desire. After thinking carefully, he replied, "For me, the reward of $10 million is enough for me to do whatever I want to do now. So at this point I don't know what I want." Now Luo Guang is not short of money, what he lacks is trustworthy talents and how to secretly build his own power. "That's a good idea, then think of it as I owe you a favor. My extra lifespan is the shelf life of your favor." In Corpus' view, Luo Guang's words did not seem like he was pretending, and his critical illness was a top secret of the entire family, so he speculated that the purpose of Luo Guang's answer was not to imply that he wanted a favor from the head of the Donald family. But the fact that the other party doesn't want it doesn't mean that he can't give it, and he thinks it's okay to give a favor to a little person. The questions and answers that old man Corpus gave along the way did not sound like someone who had been in the political and business circles for many years and finally broke out of the siege. This was not because he had an epiphany and became kind-hearted after experiencing life and death, nor was it because I really want to repay Luo Guang for saving his life. All this is due to Luo Guang's control ability. The targets of this control ability are T. Veronica virus infections and infections of the ancestor virus lineage. The most special one is that Luo Guang can control T. Veronica virus infections by using suprasensory perception. Although the T. Veronica virus infected objects have their own classes, the T. Veronica virus submitted by Luo Guang was specially made by himself, so the effect is more powerful, and it can only accept Luo Guang's instructions. This is the first time Luo Guang has used this kind of supersensory perception. It gives people an indescribable feeling. If you want to make an analogy, it is more like a kind of hypnosis, but it is silent and difficult to break. Because there were many people around, Luo Guang did not try to control the behavior of the old man cops, but tried to change his mind. The result was that the old man in front of him did not ask Luo Guang any questions that were difficult to answer. There was no trace of doubt in Luo Guang's answer. Up to this point, Luo Guang's order was very short, just a simple sentence: Luo Guang is trustworthy. With such an order as the foundation, Old Man Kopus looked at Luo Guang with a thick filter, and even imagined some of Luo Guang's good qualities. After groping for a few words, Luo Guang confirmed that his order was effective, and then conveyed several new orders to the other party, such as Luo Guang can be entrusted with important tasks and I need to strongly support Luo Guang, which are relatively vague and general instructions. This chapter is not yet finished. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Since he has gained the trust of the other party, Luo Guang is a little bolder at this time, and his voice is much louder. He even exchanged contact information with cops under Jack's surprised eyes. Luo, I didn't expect that you and I can chat so well at this time. Cops felt that he and Luo Guang had become friends regardless of age. There were other people around, and Luo Guang did not relax. He waved his hand and replied that he didn't dare to climb high. At this time, cops felt that Luo Guang was very pleasing to his eyes. He smiled happily and said, "But, I see it's getting late, and I still have things to deal with. You shouldn't have had dinner yet, right?" Before meeting Luo Guang, cops just wanted to ask him to come over to ask a few questions and confirm some things. He never thought of keeping Luo Guang for dinner. After he said that, he turned his head and asked his maid to inform the kitchen to prepare some high-end dishes for Luo Guang. The maid did not leave immediately, and first confirmed with Luo Guang whether he had any dietary restrictions before leaving the room. With the help of the maid, Cop sat in a special electric wheelchair and was about to leave the restaurant. He said, "Luo, you have a meal here and Jack will take you back. I have something to deal with, so I will leave first." Luo Guang naturally agreed with both hands to eat alone. He also wanted to try the chef's skills here, so he nodded quickly. Although he could control the electric wheelchair to move, Cop still let the maid behind him push him to the conference room on the other side of the villa. The villa bodyguard pushed open the door, and Cops looked at his family members inside and came to the main seat in the conference room. "Uncle, why are you so friendly to that newcomer?" Although the person who spoke looked down on ants like Luo Guang, he was still more careful with his words. Cops laughed, not at all the fierceness that dominated the political and business circles before, and replied, "You also know the information about Luo Guang. He is destined to appear in places where various viruses appear. I have a good relationship with him just to let him give priority to handing over viruses like T. Veronica virus to our family in the future. But we can send other people out. Didn't the organization recently form a force called Red Claw? We can arrange more people to infiltrate it." Luo Guang himself is the captain of the special operations team of the Red Claw force. This advantage is too great. Others can't infiltrate him better than him. Cops rejected the other party's suggestion in one sentence, and then added, "Fortunately, Captain Sheffield is close to us, so we didn't pay any price and easily took the 2 T. Veronica virus samples, but what if Luo Guang was discovered by other families when he submitted them to the organization? The X organization itself is composed of multiple families. In normal times, the families are not united. They also fight among themselves to share the cake. It's just that the struggles between the families are within the rules of the organization. At the same time, the families in the organization can be united against those who come to grab the cake, so the leaders of the X organization have not made any changes in this regard over the years. Father, we still have samples of the T. Veronica virus. Relying on our scientific research capabilities, it is not difficult to mass-produce the virus samples. In this case, we should not need it in many cases in the future. The person who said this is already in his 50s and has reached the age of starting to worry about his lifespan. Kops naturally understands his son's idea, but he has a more ambitious blueprint and said, but the side effects are not small. Changing organs all year round is not a long-term solution, and the members of our family will continue to increase, multiply, and spread out. Some people understand what Kops meant by this. In order to express it in front of the head of the family, they said, "Head of the family, do you mean to improve the T. Veronica virus and let our family members enjoy the luxury of life forever?" But whether the T. Veronica virus can make people immortal is still unknown. Some people also raised objections. Kops looked at the quarreling family members in front of him and couldn't help but recall the time before he was paralyzed in bed. Everyone quarreled until their ears were red and their faces were red. It took a long time for them to react. The head of the family was different from before. He was sitting in the conference room at this time, not an old immortal who only appeared on the big screen. Kops noticed the flash of fear in some people's eyes, but he didn't say anything. Kops's control over the family over the years can be said to be extreme. Therefore, even if Kops was half paralyzed in bed, none of the family members who were fighting for power dared to jump out to seize power, but chose to wait quietly for Kops' death. However, God played a joke on those who were about to die. Who would have thought that what was originally just a joke task when Kops was young would become Kops' life-saving straw many years later, so those who called Kops uncle would question Luo Guang. "I have already decided to make friends with Luo Guang. You just need to follow my instructions." Seriously, it was impossible for Kops not to see how much resentment these people had towards Luo Guang, but once he said this, the others would naturally put away their little thoughts. After solving Luo Guang's problem, he started talking about immortality and answered other people's questions. Before this, we all underestimated Umbrella. Although Umbrella has stores all over the world and is the head of the Global Pharmaceutical Federation, in the eyes of Organization X, this is not enough. Father, it should be that we underestimated that little virus. No wonder Umbrella invested the money earned in the market into the bottomless pit of biochemical virus research in a blink of an eye. The people in the family basically learned various knowledge around the political and business circles, so they did not know much about biochemical viruses. "Uncle, why don't we split up Umbrella at this time, and take away its precious scientific research technology first? It's a good idea, but now all organizations around the world are eyeing Umbrella, which is not easy to deal with." Kops raised his hand to stop others who wanted to express their opinions, and continued, "Based on the latest intelligence, I speculate that the Red Claws may become a weapon against Umbrella's private army next. This is exactly why you, Grandpa, make friends with Luo Guang." Kops' granddaughter was quick-witted and instantly connected Kops' previous words. Kops nodded and said, "Anna is right, this is a good investment, low risk and high return." Seeing that the head of the family had set the tone, the others did not continue to talk about Luo Guang, but turned to discuss the development of the T. Veronica virus. On the other side, Luo Guang enjoyed a luxurious meal and left the villa with Jack, who was full of envy. Looking at the scenery outside the car, Luo Guang and Jack chatted about some unimportant things, and in their hearts they were confirming the situation of the super-sensing perception ability. First of all, the wall could not prevent Luo Guang from giving the latest instructions to Kops, who was speaking in the conference room on the other side of the villa, and from hearing what the Donald family members said through Kops and seeing their faces. For example, the head of the Kops family felt that Luo Guang alone was enough in the Red Claws, and it was Luo Guang's masterpiece that he did not prepare a few backup insurances. Fortunately, the relationship between their family members was not particularly close, Cops had not communicated with others face to face for a long time, and Luo Guang seemed to be just a small figure in their eyes, so cops' carelessness in dealing with Luo Guang's decision at this time did not attract the attention of others. Jack drove Luo Guang into the city of Chicago, and at this time Luo Guang could not sense cops' existence at all. The range of super-sensing perception ability is about 10 kilometers, and the limit of conveying orders is about 3 kilometers. In general, it is not too long, but the system speculates that this ability can be upgraded and strengthened, so Luo Guang thinks it is not bad and is relatively satisfied. Next, Luo Guang planned to rest for a few days, but just as Luo Guang returned to the hotel, Jill finally replied. Asterisk. Thank you for the votes at the beginning of the month. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 125. Chapter 122 Trip to Europe. Jill's reply was a simple word, peace. It's fine. Luo Guang glanced at his Nokia phone and smiled. Because of confidentiality and security, Luo Guang and Jill did not say anything else in the text messages. They just said a word of peace to each other to let both parties know that the other was okay. Sitting on the bed, Luo Guang took over the box that Emma had given him. Inside was a Lanka knife, which is often called the Nepali army knife. Luo Guang picked up an instruction manual inside and saw that the knife was 28 centimeters long and had a 17-degree arc. The blade was non-polished and coated with a layer of light-absorbing paint. There was also a V-shaped indentation on the bottom of the blade. What surprised Luo Guang most was that the description mentioned that the entire knife was made of TG-01, a new alloy product of Metal Industry Company, which is a newly developed special alloy. According to the internal propaganda of the Metal Industry Company, this TG-01 special alloy cannot be detected by any metal detector. Even the X-ray inspection at the time of entry and exit cannot detect the existence of this metal. The most important thing is, in addition to retaining the above functions, this special alloy also has the characteristics of superior strength and extremely lightweight. No wonder even the handle of this knife is made directly from this alloy and is not wrapped with anything. Luo Guang touched the anti-slip pattern on the handle and said to himself. Luo Guang held the Ronca knife in his hand and swung it a few times. He was a bit dumbfounded. With his current strength, the knife could not feel any weight in his hand. This made Luo Guang feel nothing when swinging it. The scabbard of this knife is a metal box, and the material is naturally made of the same special alloy as the knife. Taking the instruction manual and reading further, Luo Guang realized that this special alloy was not purchased by organization. For an intelligence agent, this kind of weapon that can evade detection is indeed very suitable. It seems that Captain Sheffield also put a little thought into this gift. Thinking of this, Luo Guang used the pad machine organized by Can I customize a new pistol from him? After taking a shower, Luo Guang lay on the bed and picked up the pad of Organization X to catch up on the news information he had missed while on the mission. First of all, judging from the intelligence of Organization, Luo Guang thought that he and Jill had been separated for a long time. Although he was not worried about Chris, a stubborn person, long-distance relationships were always not safe. At this time, he was already a member of the Red Claws. As a special operations team, he had the right to act independently, so no one would find it strange that he was running around alone. Besides, after this mission on Bainoi Island, Luo Guang finally understood why Wesker always acted alone in the Resident Evil games, because others simply couldn't keep up with Wesker's pace. Moreover, Luo Guang also needs to hide his extraordinary abilities, so acting independently is more in line with Luo Guang's own requirements, so Luo Guang also mentioned his need to perform tasks alone in his mission report. But the most important point is that Luo Guang didn't dare to take Wang Wei to find Jill. That was the situation Luo Guang didn't want to face the most. When Luo Guang was thinking about whether he should take this opportunity to find Jill and then raid the biochemical weapons factory in the name of the Red Claws, Luo Guang thought of something. It seems that he doesn't necessarily have to stick to his identity as the Red Claws. Being a mysterious vigilante seems to be a good idea. However, it is not too late to wait until Europe to implement this plan. Continuing to check the intelligence collected by organization, the judicial trial will begin this year, that is, at the end of 1999. After thinking for a moment, Luo Guang called Claire. "Hey, Claire, good evening." "Ah, Luo Guang," Claire gasped and responded. Luo Guang used himself to save others. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Am I disturbing you and Steve?" "Huh? Steve is not with me. I am working out now, and Steve went out with Alyssa." Claire was as innocent as ever and did not realize what Luo Guang meant by what he said. While Luo Guang was silent about his dirty thoughts, Claire asked, "Is there something wrong? How are things going on there? Do you need help?" Luo Guang finally agreed to Chris to take care of his sister, so he planned to see if there was anything he could do to help. Claire thought for a while and said, "The main problem is that there are not enough witnesses. Many people in Raccoon City have not been found, or they are not willing to come forward." Luo Guang thought of Marvin and the others, and asked Claire if she knew about their situation. "Marvin has promised to testify when the time comes. In addition to describing the tragedy in Raccoon City, he is also prepared to tell the story about the collusion between the police chief and Umbrella. Is he trying to prove that the Raccoon City tragedy was inevitable because of the inaction of the Raccoon City police chief?" This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. After Luo Guang finished speaking, he then raised a question: does he have enough evidence? From the letters I showed him, it can only be seen that the director accepted bribes, but it cannot be seen that the briber was from Umbrella. The lawyer we hired also said so, and I was present when the police chief died. Claire naturally understood that Marvin did not play a big role in this trial, so she planned to let Marvin focus on his description. How the police department protected the masses despite the deliberate obstruction of the chief, playing the sympathy card. Luo Guang continued to ask, "Are the others not agreeing?" They agreed, but it was similar to Marvin's evidence and testimony, and they would appear in court with Marvin. Claire explained. Luo Guang then asked Cindy and others he met at Raccoon City University, and Claire answered them one by one, saying that they were basically willing to testify in court. Umbrella is now in a state of being overthrown by everyone. At that time, Alyssa and Claire released the video of the biohazard incident in Raccoon City, which caught Umbrella off guard, so Umbrella threatened again at this time. Those Raccoon City survivors don't mean much anymore. That's good. It seems that you are all ready and waiting for the court to start. Luo Guang used his pad to check the reason why the court date was set to the end of the year. It was just because the matter was of great importance and allowed both parties enough time to proceed. Collect evidence and be well prepared. This kind of biohazard crisis is also the first time that the courts of the Lighthouse country have tried it. In their view, this trial will have a great impact on similar cases in the future. Therefore, the courts of the Lighthouse country will be extra cautious, and the special prosecutors responsible for the prosecution will prosecutors also need to be well prepared. Just like Luo Guangcha, Claire replied, "Yes, actually it's okay on our side. Except for Umbrella, the other parties currently don't have an accurate discussion result, especially the public prosecution side, which seems to be still unclear. There is no unified charge." Claire wanted to bring down Umbrella Company as soon as possible, so Luo Guang could feel Claire's dissatisfaction with this in what he just said. While chatting with Claire and confirming the situation there, Luo Guang checked the reporter Alyssa Ashcroft, who was currently acting with Claire. According to the intelligence collected by Organization X, reporter Alyssa was not born and raised in Raccoon City. In 1993, due to rumors of an illegal drug experiment, Alyssa and her friend Kurt, who is also a reporter, went to the Akuri Mountains to investigate. According to their tips, they learned that a pharmaceutical company bribed people in the mountainous area. Akura General Hospital, where illegal drug experiments were conducted on patients. However, the intelligence from organization. With such a question, Luo Guang told Claire about it and asked how they knew Alyssa. In that case, a doctor named Greg Mueller helped Umbrella cover up the incident. Claire mentioned a name that Luo Guang was familiar with. That was the Umbrella researcher who was silenced by Umbrella itself. Naturally, it was not unrelated to the illegal drug experiments in the Arklay Mountains, and it was also the one who Wang Wei said had his memory modified and deleted. People. Claire's tone was filled with admiration as she continued, that Greg Mueller performed an operation on Alyssa and suppressed her memory of the accident, so Alyssa could only barely remember what happened in the hospital after an accident. It was forced to shut down completely, so the investigation results of the incident were not reported. Fortunately, when Alyssa was trying to escape the city, she once again came to the General Hospital in the Arklay Mountains. Because of the familiar scenery and the excitement of life and death battles, she regained her memory. Luo Guang understood Claire's subtext, which was that she thought Alyssa had no problem and could be trusted, so he asked what Claire had said before and said, by the way, who was Alyssa's informant? Are they the survivors of Raccoon City? I don't know, but Alyssa said it has something to do with Umbrella, but has nothing to do with the lawsuit. After Claire thought about Luo Guang's identity, she decided to answer simply. After all, it is not common to talk on the phone now. For safety and confidentiality, it is better not to say anything too important. Luo Guang looked at the information on the pad and continued, since you are making good progress there, that's good. By the way, do you have enough funds for your activities? It should cost a lot to hire a lawyer, right? Steve inherited the property his father left him, so now we are not short of money. When Claire said this, the corners of her mouth raised slightly, and she recalled Steve's surprised expression after knowing that his father had left for him the money he had gained from betraying Umbrella. After almost resting, Claire planned to practice another set of exercises, so she said to Luo Guang, if there is nothing else, I will continue to exercise. By the way, Claire, one more thing, be careful of this little pervert Steve. Luo Guang finished speaking with a smile and hung up the phone without waiting for Claire's reply. Let's not talk about Claire's reaction after hearing Luo Guang's words. Luo Guang threw his phone on the pillow and continued to look at the information on the pad, lost in thought. A few days later, Luo Guang sat in the VIP lounge of the airport and called Mo Wen to learn about Mo Wen's new job and ask about the matter of Benoi Island. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading. I have organized the manpower here and started to cooperate with the Red Claws to rescue the survivors Cinema Yi and Jin. These acquaintances of yours have also been rescued, and they asked me to convey their gratitude to you. After saying these words, Mo Wen also complained about the Red Claws, especially the oppression of himself and others by the serious Tanya. After all, you are an enthusiastic citizen. Luo Guang described Mo Wen as a brave man in the report he submitted, smiling. Mo Wen smiled bitterly and said, don't bother me. Is there any news about the things I asked you to pay attention to before? Luo Guang told Mo Wen a lot of things before leaving. In addition to rescuing the people in the rescue station, there were things about Banrali Island. Mo Wen looked around and confirmed that no one was paying attention to him. Then he lowered his voice and said, all the criminals in the prison were killed by zombies. Mo Wen put the emphasis on the word zombie, implying that Luo Guang's statement about zombies was problematic. Are you sure no one survived? According to the information in the pad, Organization X has a lot of ideas about some people in the prison. Luo Guang saw that Organization X wanted to use this incident to take some people in the prison into their pockets and make them work overtime every day to serve the organization. Mo Wen thought about Luo Guang's words. Luo Guang, who was far away from Benoi Island, seemed to think that someone had successfully escaped. Could this be the information collected by Luo Guang's intelligence network? In Mo Wen's mind, Luo Guang's background suddenly became confusing, which made him think that it would be better to directly join Luo Guang to work. With a bit of humility in his tone, he said, "The place was washed by small fuel air bombs, and then the Benoi Island guards of Papua New Guinea entered to clean it up again." Mo Wen also had his own informants in the Papua New Guinea army. He learned about this situation from those people. It was just that the other party did not tell Mo Wen about the specific implementation for their own future. Mo Wen also knew the other party's concerns, and in order to continue cooperation, he did not ask any more questions. "I know, you don't have to worry about other things, work hard, and I will take you to eat delicious food and drink spicy food in the future." Luo Guang glanced at the wall clock in the VIP room, and he was about to get on the plane. After hanging up the phone, a waitress with a slightly flat figure came in and walked to Luo Guang's side. She looked at the man in front of her with a dignified figure and a handsome face, blushed slightly, and said, "Mr. Wu, your plane is ready and you can board at any time." "Thank you." Luo Guang's appearance and figure at this time were different from usual, and the identity he used was not Luo Guang, but a wealthy man named Wu Song. His destination for this trip was Prussia in Europe. "It's too late again."